Madam Chair, council members, and participants, we are now live.
Great. Good morning, everyone. I understand that state law currently requires that the following announcement be made at the beginning of every remote public hearing as follows. Due to the current public health emergency, City Council committees are currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at public hearings of council committees are included in the public hearing notices that are published in the Daily News, Inquirer, and Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearings and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. I now note that the hour has come. Eliza Alford, would you please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance will please indicate that you are present when your name is called. Also, please say a few brief words when responding so that your image will be displayed on screen when you speak.
Councilmember Jones.
Madam Chair, colleagues, good morning. Looking forward to important discussion.
Good morning.
Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I'm looking forward to this hearing today.
Councilmember Quinona Sanchez.
Good morning, Madam Chair and colleagues. Look forward to today's conversation. Thank you.
Good morning.
Councilmember Dong.
Good morning, Madam Chair and colleagues, and also thank you, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, for bringing this topic to the forefront.
Councilmember Brooks.
Good morning, Madam Chair and colleagues and participants. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Councilmember Bass.
Good morning, Madam Chair, colleagues in the City of Philadelphia. Looking forward to a very important conversation today. Thank you.
Good morning.
Councilmember Gaudier.
Good morning, everybody. I'm also looking forward to the conversation and appreciate everyone being here. So a quorum of the committee has been established and this hearing is now called to order. This is the public hearing of the Committee on Housing, Neighborhood Development, and the Homeless regarding resolution number 210208. Ms. Alford, will you please read the title of the resolution?
Resolution 210695, a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia City Council Committee on Housing, Neighborhood Development, and the Homeless to hold a hearing to discuss the impact of tangled titles in Philadelphia.
Okay. Before we begin to hear testimony from the witnesses we have for today, everyone who has been invited to the meeting to testify should be aware that this public hearing is being recorded. Because the hearing is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. Additionally, prior to recognizing members for the questions or comments that they have for witnesses, I will note for the record at this time that we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for this purpose. And so good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this Housing Committee hearing to discuss the impact of tangled titles on the City of Philadelphia. I'm very grateful to my colleague, Catherine Gilmore Richardson, for her leadership and partnership on this issue and for her dedication to solving this serious problem for our city. Thanks to a recent report from the Pew Charitable Trust, we have confirmation for what many residents of West and Southwest Philadelphia, if we could all make sure that we're on mute, that would be wonderful. So thanks for a recent report from the Pew Charitable Trust. We have confirmation for what many residents of West and Southwest Philadelphia already knew to be true. That tangled titles are a major barrier to creating intergenerational wealth in our communities, and they disproportionately affect Black homeowners in low-income neighborhoods. And when a title to a property is tangled, residents cannot benefit from the value that exists within their homes, but they're expected at the same time to maintain their homes and to pay taxes on the property regardless. A tangled title also makes it infinitely more difficult for residents to access resources like loans and city-run repair programs that can be a real lifesaver when it comes to maintaining a property, especially for low-income homeowners. And as a result, homes with tangled titles often fall into disrepair and are sometimes even abandoned, in turn creating conditions that make our communities vulnerable to disinvestment and increased levels of violence. If stable, safe neighborhoods are our goal as a city, then addressing Philadelphia's tangled title issue is a necessary step in the right direction. Great work is already being done to address this issue, both by city agencies like the Register of Wills and the Department of Records, as well as legal aid organizations like Community Legal Services and Philadelphia VIP, which coordinate pro bono support from private practice attorneys. And as the chair of Council's Housing Committee and as a representative of the district with the highest volume of tangled title properties, I feel it's important to advocate for residents and to address this problem in any way that I can. And that's why I'm really proud of the $7.6 million that City Council as a body allocated towards tangled titles over 4 years of the Neighborhood Preservation Initiative. And looking further down the road, I plan to call for increased funding to support and expand the existing efforts to address tangled titles. I think additional resources will allow us to offer even more extensive assistance to more Philadelphians struggling with this problem. Because home ownership is one of the clearest paths to building generational wealth, it's incredibly important that we clear that path for all Philadelphians. Housing equity has been my number one priority since I was on the campaign trail and in my career before City Council, and I'll continue to fight for it until every resident has access to safe, affordable housing that they can pass on to the next generation. And with that, I wanted to open it up to my colleague, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, for any opening remarks.
Well, thank you. Thank you so
Madam
much,
Chair.
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, this is Councilmember School. I just wanted to be recorded as present for the hearing. Thank you.
Wonderful. Good morning. Go ahead, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and good morning to you and to our colleagues. And first, I just want to thank you for co-introducing this resolution with me and really understanding the importance and significance of this issue, particularly for families in the 3rd Council District, but really across the entire city of Philadelphia. And I especially want to thank our Register of Wills, Tracy Gordon, for highlighting this issue across the city in very unique ways, particularly via social media, and our Records Commissioner Leonard for all the work they've done together on the PDI initiative, as well as all of our legal aid organizations in our planning department. We know and recognize from the Pew Report that there are over 10,000 families living in homes that were owned by their deceased loved ones, in homes that are most likely worth a lot more than they were when their loved ones first acquired the property. And additionally, Madam Chair, there are many families losing their generational legacy and wealth because they are unable to resolve a tangled title or deed. And I know this from personal experience. First, my dad died without a will, and incidentally, today is his birthday, so this hearing is for you, Dad. And then my grandmother died, and 8 months later, my mom died. And my sister and I were left with 2 houses in Winfield, Councilmember Jones, both with mortgages. My dad's estate was never resolved, and we had no idea what to do. So a lot of months, a lot of money, a lot of blood, sweat, and a whole lot of tears later, we got it done. It was difficult, and in a city like Philadelphia, where so many of our residents live in underserved communities working in low-wage jobs, it is almost impossible to imagine a positive outcome like the one my sister and I enjoy. So today, I'm looking forward to having a robust discussion about tangled titles and deeds in our city, about what more we can do to ensure we are helping as many families as possible through this issue. So again, Madam Chair, I thank you. I thank you for always standing up in the housing community. To all of my colleagues here, thank you for participating in this hearing. To all of the witnesses and to everyone assembled, we thank you very, very much. And we know we are going to move the needle on this issue. And finally, I have to say, thank you, Council President. Thank you for the allocation through the Neighborhood Preservation Initiative of the $7.6 million for tangled titles and deeds, $1.9 million per year over the next 4 years. That robust investment will triple the investment year over year for the next 4 years to help families resolve tangled titles and deeds. So I want to thank you for your commitment. I want to thank you for always picking up the phone and picking up the call and understanding how important this issue is to me, to our colleagues, and to families that we serve in the city of Philadelphia. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much for sharing such a personal story, and I'm sorry that you've had to experience so many great losses in recent years. Are there any other members of the committee that would like to make opening remarks before we move on? Okay. So, Ms. Alford, will you please call the first panel of or witness that we have to testify this morning?
Miss Michelle Mahan.
Okay. Good morning, Ms. Mahan. Are you connected and ready to proceed?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please state your name for the record and go ahead and proceed with your testimony.
Okay. My name is Michelle Mahan. I live on a small street in Germantown. My grandmother and my uncle helped my mother buy this 2-story brick home back in the 1960s. I was 11 years old. My younger brother and I attended Joseph Pinnell Elementary School. It was just blocks away. But one of the things that is so special about this street is that there are 3rd and 4th generation families still living here. Families that I've known for over 50 years. But in 1986, my mom became unexpectedly ill and she passed away like within 6 months. And it was really hard on all of us, but it was really the most hard on my younger brother. After my mother's funeral, the family didn't see him or have contact. He just disappeared. Since my mother didn't have a will and my younger brother was out of contact, it was difficult to settle the estate. We did try to find him over the years. But when I looked into the legal process, the cost was well above anything I could manage. I just couldn't do it. This home was the first property my mother's family ever owned, and she really worked hard to maintain it. And it just hurts me that I can't address the upkeep of this property because the title is tangled. There's little I can do to to take care of it on my own. And actually I have friends that are always telling me about programs the city has to offer, but of course I don't qualify. Technically, I am not the owner. And it's really, really frustrating. I also became concerned more and more with investors coming around asking to buy the property for cash. I was hearing that there was real estate theft occurring in the city. So with the house title in my deceased mother's name, I began to feel really, really vulnerable. I believe it was around April of this year. East and Mount Airy neighbors held a home and safety workshop on Zoom addressing deeds and tangled titles. I made it my business to attend, and I heard Tracy Gordon from the Registrar of Wills office and several others, including Michael Froelich, speak about so many homes in Philadelphia being in this situation. I realized that I was not alone, but more importantly, the opportunity came to correct the ownership status of my home, and I realized help had arrived. So I called the number right away. I spoke to Michael at Community Legal Services and began the process. But the very first thing he did was assign me to a highly skilled and dedicated paralegal, Dot Goldberger. She was able to find my brother after no contact with him for 35 years. This is huge. It's huge for my whole family and the fact of being able to get our house together. So they have been guiding me through the legal process to raise my mother's estate. Believe me, I couldn't have done this on my own, nor could I afford to hire an attorney. And through all of this, I learned the importance of having a will, and they're able to help me with that too. I hope the city will make this program more visible for the public. Eastern Mount Airy Neighbors is a very proactive community, but a lot of communities are not. I didn't receive this information in Germantown where I live. So what about other parts of the city? Maybe there are other means of outreach so that families in Philly can feel more secure in their homes and apply for programs if needed, and that they can get the help they need to maintain their properties. For me, this has made a huge, big difference. Thank you so much for all the work you guys are doing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mahan, and thanks for sharing such a personal story. And I'm really glad that you were able to find your way to our Register of Wills and all of the agencies, CLS, and everybody else who helped you. But you make a good point that we have to make these resources more visible so that we can help more people. Thank you so much for being with us today. Are there any questions or comments for the committee, from the committee for this witness? Okay, we will move on to the next panel. Ms. Alford, will you please call the next panel to testify?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, had you indicated that you wanted to? I'm so sorry, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much,
I'm
Madam
sorry,
Chair.
Madam Chair, you'll
Oh,
see.
I'm just skipping everybody. I'm sorry.
No, wait a minute,
Vice
but
Chair
in the chat
Jones.
feature, I'm asking questions, but it's for the Register of Wills.
Oh, okay. So when we get to that, you'll have your chance to ask questions. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so I just quickly, Michelle, I just wanted to thank you for sharing your story, and thank you so much for being a part of this hearing. I too am so happy, first, that you've been able to find your brother, but also that you've been connected to Roe and to CLS to continue resolving this. And I wanted to add that we are also, through the work of Council President's MPI initiative, adding additional support for help with repairs for homeowners. And I do receive your feedback and your testimony that we must do more to ensure we are educating our constituents around this issue and making programs more readily available across the city, particularly in communities that may not have very robust community organizations. So thank you very, very much. And I was taking notes while you were speaking for additional follow-up for myself and my colleagues. So thank you so much. And I'm just so very happy for you.
Okay, so now, Ms. Alford, will you please call the next panel to testify?
Mr. Garrett Hinken.
Good morning, Mr. Hinken. Are you connected and ready to proceed?
I believe so. Yes. You hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Sure. My name is Garrett Hinken. I'm a researcher at the Pew Charitable Trust Philadelphia Research Initiative, PRPI. I'd like to thank Chair Gauthier, Vice Chair Jones, Councilmember Richardson, and members of the committee for this opportunity today. At PRPI, we conduct independent, nonpartisan research and engage with policymakers and civic partners to address important challenges facing Philadelphia, which is Pew's hometown. One of those challenges is tangled titles, the hometown term for a property with unclear ownership. Somebody living in a home with a tangled title has all the obligations of home ownership, such as paying taxes and maintaining the property, but few of the resources and protections afforded to deed holders. Resolving the issue can be daunting, particularly for households with limited means, but left unresolved, tangled titles undercut family wealth preservation of affordable housing, and ultimately neighborhood stability. In August, we released a detailed report looking at the issue, which is available on our website. I'd like to spend just a quick few minutes walking through our key findings. First, we looked at how tangled titles arise. There's many ways, but the most common scenario is when the owner of record dies and a relative inherits the property but does not record a new deed. The existence of a will, although helpful, is not enough in itself. A tangled title can still result unless the will goes through the legal process known as probate and a new deed is filed with the city. We also examined how widespread the problem is and found at least 10,407 Philadelphia households grappling with the tangled title. Collectively, those affected homes are valued at more than $1.1 billion, so a significant amount of money, family wealth is potentially at risk. We examine where they're found, and they exist in every part of the city, but clearly affect some neighborhoods more than others. The incidence is highest in parts of North, Upper North, West, and Southwest Philadelphia, areas that account for about a third of the tangled titles, or half the tangled titles, but only a third of all residential properties. In my written testimony, we've included a chart breaking out the numbers by council district, where the greatest numbers are found in the 3rd, 5th, and 8th districts. Those neighborhoods most affected tend to be those with relatively low housing values, low incomes, and high poverty rates. The populations hardest hit are predominantly Black, while those least affected are majority white. I think differing levels of estate planning likely contribute to that dynamic. A national study we looked at found that among people over age 50, only 20% of Black people have valid wills, compared with 63% of white people. And in Philadelphia, 49% of Black households own their own homes, which is the highest rate of Black home ownership among the 50 largest cities in the country. The prevalence of tangled titles in majority Black neighborhoods threatens that high level of home ownership and its potential to build wealth across generations. In exploring what it takes to resolve a tangled title, we found that doing so usually requires an attorney, can be very time-consuming, tedious, and expensive. Without legal assistance, fee waivers, or other subsidies, the cost can be significant. We came up with the number $9,200 for the simplest case. So that suggests that remedying 10,000 plus tangled titles is a roughly $96 million problem, which is a significant amount of money, but it's less than a tenth of the $1.1 billion in housing wealth potentially at risk. So for as long as the title remains tangled, the affected homeowner will find themselves unable to sell the home, take out a home equity loan, obtain homeowner's insurance, participate in city home repair programs. Additionally, they'll face obstacles participating in relief programs that can help with real estate taxes and water department charges. Altogether, these limitations put a home, in many cases the family's primary source of accumulated wealth, at greater risk of deterioration, foreclosure, and in some cases, deed theft. So remedying a tangled title can make a world of difference. One gentleman interviewed for our report had lived for 8 years in his family's longtime Northeast Philadelphia home before getting the title untangled. Looking back at the experience, he said, I went a lot of places and they told me, you don't own the house, you can't get the help. And now I do, and now I can. I can say, here's the deed, what can we do? And our research shows that there are at least 10,000 Philadelphians out there who still don't know what that feels like. So thank you for the opportunity to share this research and for the ongoing work for this committee.
Thank you so much for your testimony today. I wanted to ask, your opinion. What additional resources do you think can be made available to prevent residents' titles from becoming tangled?
I think for this, the panelists you have coming up next are basically all my sources for this report, who I think are, closest to the ground and the action. So, I would like, really to hear more what they have to say than me. But I think, hitting it early and making sure just people know where to go for help and what they need to do, that it is an issue when someone dies, and the longer it goes on, the harder it is to deal with.
Thank you so much. And Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, I see you have questions for this panelist.
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair. And Garrett, thank you. Thank you very much for your research and for all of the information you have shared with our office, and just really helping us to understand the scope of this issue in the city. Now, I wanted to clarify for the record, and I know in your report you stated that there are over 10,407 tangled titles that you estimate are in Philadelphia, but that could be a low estimate. Could you tell us why and go into a little more detail about that, so we understand that this problem may be much larger than we see from a numbers perspective?
Sure. We say at least because those are the ones we could identify using our methods. And as I mentioned in my comments, there's a few ways that tangled titles can happen. It's not just when someone passes away. It could be a failed rent-to-own agreement. It could be deed theft. It could be just a recording issue. But the only ones we were able to identify were, taking the property ownership from the property records and the record ownership from the property records and from the recorded deeds, and matching those with a service that was able to check them against the Social Security death master file. So if it had the same name and address, then they came up as dead, and we flagged those as tangled titles. But there are people who might have changed names, changed addresses that we wouldn't have been able to catch in that, and also through those other means that we wouldn't have been able to identify. From what the Tangled Title Fund has done, we think it's like 75% of tangled titles are attributable to the death of the record owner. So we were able to identify, some unknown portion of that 10,000, or of that 75%. But there are more out there that, they're just hard to find as part of the problem.
It's very, very challenging. And lastly, I want to get this on the record because I do think this is important. In the study, you noted that 32% of Philadelphians with tangled titles are tax delinquent, compared to 9% of Philadelphians citywide, but that 39% of Philadelphians with tangled titles are in payment programs, compared to 34% of Philadelphians citywide. So could you just speak to, for the record, some of the challenges individuals are having with tangled titles, and why they are more likely to be tax delinquent? And were you able to determine why a higher rate of those with tangled titles are in payment programs?
Well, I'd say, to answer the last part first, and this is kind of something I heard from Michael Froelich at CLS, that people with tax issues was one of the issues that was bringing them in, that when they went to get into a owner-occupied payment agreement, only then did they realize that they had a tangled title. DHCD does work with people that you have a 3-year window to kind of show ownership and to be able to participate in the program. But you still have to go through the whole probate process. You still have to do the whole thing. But that does kind of bring you into the system. But until then, for a home equity loan or getting a grant, things that are kind of attached to the deed, if you're not the owner of it, even if, legally you are the equity owner, or things that attorneys coming up can speak about more clearly. But, for most intents and purposes, it's the deed where how you prove ownership. And without that, written document, you're out of luck.
Yeah, and then do you think there are any additional payment plans or programs that would be helpful specifically to those dealing with tangled titles and deeds? And I'll preface it by saying either those that can prove equitable ownership or those just dealing with the tangled title or deed.
Well, I know for the payment programs and for the owner-occupied, for the water department and the city, there are ways kind of provisionally to get involved. I think for the repair programs, it's not possible. But I think that has to do with them putting a lien against the property, which the record owner would have to agree to. So I'm not sure what can be done there, but I know for repair stuff, you're even more stuck than with the tax issues. You've got a great panel coming up who are closer to the ground.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I just want to thank you so much for your testimony and for all of that insight. I just want to check that there are no more questions or comments for this panelist before we move on. Okay. So, Ms. Alford, will you please call the next panel or witness to testify?
Register Gordon, Commissioner Leonard, Commissioner Breslin, Melissa Long, and Chief Assessor Eros.
Okay. Good morning, Register Gordon.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. If you're ready to proceed, please state your name for the record and go ahead with your testimony.
Yes, I have a prepared statement. My name is Tracy Gordon. I'm the Registrar of Wills and Clerk of Orphans Court here in the County of Philadelphia. Thank you for inviting me to testify today about tangled titles. This is a subject I passionately want our city to address. When a property is in the name of a deceased person, two things can happen. One, it can pass down through the legal process by a will or by intestate law if there's no will. The second thing that can happen is nothing. Nothing. When nothing happens, properties titled to a deceased person become tangled titles. These properties don't create generational wealth. You can't sell them. You can't borrow against them. You can't get FEMA, which is government assistance. You can't get basic system repair grants, which is free money that comes from local, state, and federal. Why? Because they are in the name of a dead person. Often these properties become abandoned buildings, contributing to blight and gentrification. Then comes the crime and the drugs and the violence. Communities suffer, businesses leave, continuing the cycle. The Pew Charitable Trust did a recent study that estimates there are over 10,000 tangled titles in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's not 10,000 people, but 10,000 homes, which means 10,000 families. This crisis has locked up over $1 billion in dead Philadelphia capital. Yes, that's billion with a capital B, and that's a low estimate. We also know from the recent University of Penn study that if just one home gets a BSRP grant, crime drops on that block by 22%. That's a huge drop. And the biggest obstacle to a BRSP grant, free money from the city to fix your home, is being in a tangled title. The Probate Deferment Initiative, or PDI, was designed by my office to assist Philadelphians who found themselves the victim of a tangled title. And they are victims because most don't know they're in tangled titles. The dead people didn't know they were supposed to make wills. This is something that, they were never taught. The city never taught them. The state of Pennsylvania never taught them how to protect your wealth and how to transfer your wealth just in case you die. Too many tangled titles require raising an estate for more than one deceased person. With PDI, my office will defer the probate fees. No probate fee will be collected unless the property is sold. If the relative decides to remain in the property, my office will not seek the probate fee or apply any interest. At our request, Commissioner of Deeds, James Leonard, generously agreed to waive the deed filing fee for any PDI recipient. In addition to waiving and deferring fees, we also connect families with the necessary legal assistance. You cannot untangle a title without an attorney assistance. It's too technical. It's legal. They don't know that. They don't even know what a tangled title is. They don't know how to raise an estate, get letters of administration. They don't even know, they thought, Grandma left me this house. This is my father's house. This is my mother's house. They said this is my family's house. This is heir property, which is no such thing. And then now they're hit with, their roof collapsed, or they go to one of your outreach festivals or seminar. You disseminate information to them about all these grants. We just had a Hurricane Edna. It's money. I just got a call from one of our judges. The deadline is coming up for people to be able to get the free federal legal assistance to repair houses that they're not eligible for because the house is not in their name. We are in a pandemic here in the city of Philadelphia. After a recent meeting, we discovered that the need is so great that the nonprofit legal organizations are unable to meet the demand alone. In the 6 months PDI has been active, my office alone has resolved 7 tangled titles, despite having no additional funding or dedicated staff. CLS reported that it was able to raise only 23 estates from 2019 to present. We are aware that they have other client issues to focus on as well, but it is obvious that the Registrar of Wills office and the nonprofit legal community are both needed if we are going to make an impact. This joint effort will require the Registrar of Wills receive adequate funding to make this happen. We also need dedicated administrative staff, including an additional attorney and office equipment to sustain our efforts. I previously forwarded a preliminary budget to Councilmember Gilmore Richardson. I feel confident we can do so much more with appropriate funding. Thanks you for your efforts in addressing tangled titles. I'm always prepared to be an ally in combating the tangled title crisis here in Philadelphia. I want people to stay in their homes. And in closing, I would like to publicly thank Councilman Curtis Jones for being a mentor to me and encouraging me and speaking highly of what I'm able to do over at the Registrar of Wills. I'd like to thank Kathy Gilmore Richardson, who went above beyond and didn't just say, okay, I got out of my tangled title. You know, I'm not worried about everybody else. And she took this as a passion. Councilwoman Jamie Gauthier for being a fearless fighter for homelessness. I think we can make history here by helping people get out of these tangled titles. It's really bigger than a hearing. We may have to get some assistance from the state, which I always proudly say we send between $80 to $100 million in estate and inheritance tax to the city to Harrisburg every single year. We may even be able to get some federal assistance through the Fair Housing Act. I'm doing some research on that to see that we have to help these families. It's not just one home. This is family generational wealth that we bought, but we did not know and understand. You know, we did not understand the dynamics of the educational part, and that's what my office is going through. All of your help, disseminating information. I made sure that I train all your staff, all the state staff. My staff continues to get training. We have remained open throughout the pandemic. We're in room 180 of City Hall. We are open by appointment only. We can be reached at 215-686-6250. I heard somebody had a question. If we don't get to the question, you can also email me at roweonline@phila.gov, and we will answer any question that we can, or we will refer you to these legal agencies that have been that we have been partnering with to assist you all to save your homes. Thank you all, and have a nice day.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Madam Register, for your testimony, but also for the way that you have dived right into this issue and took it upon yourself to get out into the community, spread the word about the importance of tangled titles and how people can get help. Your advocacy, your passion around this, and the probate deferment initiative has led to residents receiving a lot of assistance to untangle their titles.
7 families.
It's amazing.
In 6 months.
Yeah. And you've also, beyond the 7 families that you helped directly, you've done a lot to elevate this issue among us as policymakers, which I think will lead to even more progress on the issue in the long run. And so we really, really appreciate your tireless advocacy and your work. I have a question for you. Building off of what one of our previous panelists, Ms. Mahan, said in her testimony, and thinking about, the outreach that you've done in the community, do you have suggestions for how the city and its partners can more systematically get the word out to affected homeowners about tangled titles?
This hearing is one, definitely. We're talking about it. And that's the most important thing, that we are all talking about it collectively. You know, we're going to bring the state on. We want to bring the federal on, the legal agencies. We have enough brain power that can put together and make, have our voice heard for advocacy. Another thing we're getting, that's a big thing, that next hearing we have, where we're going to make sure that the funeral parlors and funeral homes have information, and hopefully they can incorporate on their intake form, do you have a will? Or if you don't have a will, you need to go and direct them directly to our office. Once they get to our office, our staff is equipped to help them. So the thing is, this has to be a collective campaign, billboards, along buses, in schools, universities. We have to ask the school board to incorporate estate planning in their curriculums, mandatory, making it mandatory that they learn, and just we have to find more funding. I said we had the 80 to 100 million to go to states, so we can partner with our state legislators, or maybe we can find some type of emergency funding so we can do a moratorium, maybe, waive all the taxes or whatever. It has to be, if we do this here in Philadelphia, if we do this is my prediction, and it's proof on all the statistics, we will change the course of history of the seventh largest city in this country. We have the most home ownership as a large city. We certainly send a lot of money to the state, so we are our land is wealthy. And by the way, 1 billion is underestimating, because if they're going by the BRT, how much our houses are worth, like, for instance, your area, and I know Councilman Curtis Jones may be able to speak to this, your area, Councilwoman Jamie Garcia, is one of the hot areas that are tangled titles. If you look at how much they are worth, those houses are worth a lot of money. Yeah. Location. And we could, I don't know about stopping gentrification, but we could slow it down, and then we can keep people and families in their houses so they can protect their generation well. And the good thing about the PDI program, my program that I'm proud of, and I'm proud that the community legal agencies agreed that when we untangle their title, they are going to make a will, because we got to stop it right there. So we got to, one, stop the hemorrhaging. And then two, we got to be very aggressive about educating people to avoid the tangled title.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And we hear you loudly and clearly around this work, and the agencies who are carrying out this work needing to be sufficiently funded to carry it out. I know that there are other questions for Madam Register. I see Councilmember Jones in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Member Gilmore Richardson, for zeroing in on this issue. Madam Register, I just think that you have begun the process of moving the Registers of Wills mission to become more aligned with communities that are disenfranchised, that you're taking complicated issues and taking the time to translate them, showing them their importance. I want to focus my time not so much on the humanity. You got that. You understand what it means to families and neighborhoods and how it's detrimental to the future of those families. I want to talk about or ask questions about the economics. You mentioned that these properties were in the billions. Can you repeat that number again?
They're worth billions of dollars. I mean, okay, say for instance, one home is out of a tangled title and they qualify for the BSRP grants to help them with their heaters, roofing. That's not only money to help that family, but there has to be people to do all the installation. That's economics right there. That's economics.
I took the liberty of looking at your map you sent. What is interesting, Madam Chair, and members of the committee, is that this map, if you were to juxtapose, put right over it, crime, and make crime maps, where there is tangled title, there happens to be a correlation on high crime rates. If you then take that map and look at sheriff sales, see where they are, because somebody who doesn't have title may not have the interest or wherewithal to want to pay the taxes on it or keep up with reverse mortgages, things like that. And if you look at these maps, they're very similar in a lot of bad ways to problems that we're facing in inner cities. So I'm saying, is there in your mind a correlation, Madam Register, to some of the bad things that we also are facing in other areas?
Absolutely. I can speak as a block captain. An empty building, which in a lot of cases, was single titles. You know, people just abandoned them or couldn't keep them up, or it was a fire. You can't get homeowner's insurance. So that's a liability. You live next door to somebody that's in a tangled title and they're not insured, you know? And I'll tell you, the houses that are abandoned on your block, a lot of times people swat in them, they sell drugs out of them. This is all, one house can totally destroy a block. And I know you know that. We grew up we live in row homes. And so what I'm saying is the crime in that study that the University of Penn did, this is a study, 22%. That's a huge, that's not 3%, 22%. If that one house, that one family was able to get some basic system repair grants to help them fix up and maintain houses that are basically 100 years plus. Not to mention, with the climate change, look at the flood. Vine Street was covered. I never thought I would ever see Vine Street covered with water. It's a lot of homes that was affected by that last hurricane. They're not going to be able to get FEMA. Now, FEMA is not even insurance. Insurance is you have to pay for the insurance to be able to get the protection for that liability. FEMA is you just have to be a homeowner, and the government will come in and give you money to repair your house. They can't qualify for FEMA. They can't qualify for homeowners insurance. They can't send their children to college. They can't use it as leverage to improve their housing. They can't get licenses, pull licenses to do work on the property. You have to be the homeowner of the property. The high properties are in dead people's name. And what alarms me the most is this office has been in existence since the 1600s. William Penn, the Quakers, the foreparents of this country, they all knew how to transfer their generational wealth. We still have trusts a lot thriving because they left a will with details on how their property was supposed to, continue to exist even in their death. We're saying that people, upon purchase of a home, should at least be given the option, like I was given an option to get life insurance policy because my broker said that I had 4 children. Definitely I was going to get the homeowner's insurance because the bank wasn't going to risk a liability. But I would have liked for somebody to say to me as a young woman who was college graduate, educated, hey, you may want to think about a will just in case. And remove this superstition about making wills. It's corny. It's this unbelievable that it's something as simple as a will is not people. I mean, I've talked to rich people too that don't have wills. I've talked to celebrities because I always ask the question, do you have a will? And people say, oh, I'm gonna get around to it. Oh yeah, get around to it. You make a will when you get an asset. You don't make the will when you get old.
Just finally, because I want to hear from my colleagues. What if you had to pick one city or state that got it right, that is doing tangled title in a way that we should emulate, what city or state would that be?
I'll answer it like this. We have 67 counties in the state of Pennsylvania. Tangled titles is unique to Philadelphia. I asked when I went to the association, they meet every year, beautiful Register of Wills Association, and they didn't know what I was even talking about. So,
we might be.
So I answered this too. I did visit Athens, Georgia, and I spoke with the Register of Wills there, and she said that it's not so unique there, but the University of Georgia actually has a tangled title unit, and I'm scheduled to go visit with them to talk to them about it. But I'm gonna tell you, it's very unique to Philadelphia, and that's tragic because this is one of the original colonies, the original cities. The idea of making wills and being able to protect your wealth is already in the Constitution. It's no reason why we don't know about it. We have to do better with that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So this is not a distinction that we want as a city. So that sort of drives home all of the hard that we need to do. And Councilmember Jones, thank you for that line of questioning and for making clear the high correlation between this issue and violence in our communities. And because we're citing her work a lot, I also wanted to give a shout out to Dr. Eugenia South. She has done a lot of research around place-based strategies like targeted basic systems repair and tree planting and greening of vacant lots, and how we can see drastic improvements with respect to gun violence in communities, up to 22% or even more in some cases. And she's a Black trauma surgeon and is also a resident of the 3rd District. So I wanted to make sure to give her her shout out. And I know that Councilmember Gilmore Richardson has questions for Madam Register. So go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And thank you, Madam Register. Just want to really thank you for all of the work you have done on tangled titles and deeds in Philadelphia and really educating the public. I have to say, full disclosure, it was one of your programs where I learned new information that made me know and understand that, bringing this issue that my family was facing to some type of resolution was possible. So I have to say that for the record, and thank you so very, very much for all of the education outreach that you continue to do across the city. I wanted to, for the record for this hearing, really drill down into the probate deferment initiative so that folks really understand how the program works and if they would be eligible for the program. So could you detail for us the probate deferment initiative and how the process works, meaning when someone calls about PDI, then what are the next steps?
Yes. My solicitor, Sharon Wilson, she's on. Can somebody release her microphone, and she'll be able to give you a step-by-step detailed process. She's been very instrumental in helping us navigate this probate deferment initiative. She's the one that made sure that we found a legal agency that assisted us, which was Christian Legal Clinics. And I'll let her answer that question. Thank you.
Good morning, council members. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you be sure to state your name for the record, and then you can proceed.
Sure. I'll do that. My name is Sharon Wilson. As mentioned, I'm the solicitor for the Register of Wills, and really excited about this committee proceeding and happy to discuss our probate deferment initiative. Early in the administration, the Register noticed she wanted to handle this problem, to tackle this problem with tangled titles. She called a meeting with herself and some of the legal organizations here in Philadelphia to discuss, okay, what's the best way to tackle this? from those meetings, she determined and she listened to those legal service agencies, and they said that the fee that's charged at probate when you have to open an estate can be a deterrent. Tangled titles usually can only be resolved with the opening of an estate because there's a deceased person's name in the title. So you can't do anything until you have a vehicle through which you can operate. And the estate allows you to do that. You have to open up an estate, whether there's a will or because you'll either be applying the will or you'll be applying the laws of intestacy. So this program will actually allow the person who's applying to open an estate to defer paying the probate fee. The probate fee can range up or down depending upon the value of the property involved. And as the register mentioned, even though the property may look decrepit, it may have a certain value that could have the fee be higher than our average, which is about $500. And remember, that's $500 per estate. So if you're trying to open a property which was owned by grandma, and then the only child of grandma passed, you're now, very easily facing having to open several estates. And also remember that probate fees are just one of the fees that you have to pay. There may also be back real estate taxes. There may also be inheritance tax due. So, able to at least allow people to move forward and to get over the sort of psychological and financial hurdle of opening up an estate, we initiated the PDI program to defer the fee. The fee is deferred during the time of probate, and thereafter, the register does not attempt to collect the fee and applies no interest on the fee while the relative remains in the home. So if you just are trying to, as we heard testimony earlier from Michelle, you just try to get your home titled properly so you can continue to stay there and take advantage of these programs that are available, you'll never have to pay that deferred fee. When the house is sold, however, that's when the register would look to collect that fee for payment. As a collection agent, because the Register of Wills office is a collection agent for the state of Pennsylvania, it was unclear as to whether or not we could waive the fee. I mean, our job is to collect the monies. But this allowed us to move forward without having to go through that process, although we haven't given up that process, but to go through what would probably be a lengthy process in order to just get those fees cleared out. We have talked to several clients regarding this waiver of the fee and payment only upon sale, and none of the clients that we've talked to thus far expressed any hesitation merely because the fee was there, but what may be collected upon some later date. So in addition to allowing the waiver of the fee, we also have a list of organizations that refer to legal organizations so that they begin the process of untangling the title in with every court that they need to in order to begin that process. So it's a process that allows a waiver of the fee as well as to begin the tangled title process, the legal process attendant with it. There's an application. We actually did begin focusing on lower income residents first. One, because we knew that they would have the least access to services and resources. And two, because they would automatically qualify for the legal service organizations by virtue of their income. It's our hope to expand the program because this isn't a problem that just happens to lower income communities. And middle income communities are having some of the same problems because people may not be poor, but it takes a certain amount of funds to get this done. And the legal process, as I think Garrett testified to earlier from Pew, can take a substantial amount of money between $8,000 and $10,000. So that's the program we have instituted to date. And as she's mentioned, we've had at least 7 successful clients and families go through. We have others in the pipeline that we're excited to assist as well.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. And thank you again for your work on PDI and for really detailing how Philadelphians, particularly low-income Philadelphians, could be involved in the program. I just wanted to ask you, because Madam Register talked about the 7 tangled titles that you all were able to resolve. Can you share more with us about that work and the process that those clients went through to come to resolution?
Sure. They would usually, it starts with an inquiry to our Row online email box. We have a email just for PDI programming. So we run the program through our legal department, even though, as the Register mentioned, we don't have dedicated staff or resources for this. We are really stretching ourselves because this is a passion that she really wants to address. So we run it through that legal department. They begin the process with an application and a referral to a legal services provider. We confirm that they in fact have that provider. They then make an appointment for probate. We have established a special lane for PDI clients so that they can get into probate. Probate can be a pretty long wait these days because COVID has had such an impact on our office. There's been so many additional deaths and disabilities, and it's sent people to our office in a way that we are really full of just trying to handle that population. But again, we made a decision by stretching employee resources that we would create this little lane for PDI to make sure that it happens. So once that occurs, the probate clerk is alerted that this is a PDI case. So they know to go through the process, to put it in a particular lane, and then to not charge the client a fee. The application has an internal review at that time, and if in fact they're accepted and we haven't really turned anyone away that meets our process, then we institute a lien for that $500 so that it remains there, so that the city can get their money eventually and that the state will get their money. So it's a process that allows the family to go forward, but ultimately doesn't deprive the city or the state of any monies, because absent this program, they would have never seen this money anyway. These people would have never gone through this process. We also issue a deed waiver that the Department of Records has agreed to accept. At the conclusion of probate, a deed can be drafted giving this property to the appropriate relative. It can be filed at the Department of Records for no fee. That's not the same as saying that there's no transfer fee. And there usually isn't between the parties, but this is a filing fee. There's no filing fee. And thereafter, they go through the normal process. At any time, one of these clients can come in and say to us, hey, we have the money now to pay this, and we'll collect that fee at that time. And sometimes it's because you need an estate in order to access the monies. So they are really in a catch-22 when they can't open up an estate because the monies are sitting there, but they don't have the authority to receive the monies. So once we do that, it can sort of unlock that door for them. And if those monies are available to them, we say, we judge, the little nudge, we want our monies, thank you. And we go forward at that point. And the final step, we at least remind them to say, hey, you need a will. Where's your will? And they talk to their legal service representative to get that will done.
Okay, and just to confirm though, so the folks that come through PDI, when they need assistance from an attorney, they are transferred to one of the legal aid organizations.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any more questions and comments from members of the committee for Madam Register? Okay. With that, Ms. Alford, can you please call the next witness to testify?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Leonard,
Commissioner Leonard, good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your name and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson Gautier and committee members. I am James Leonard, Commissioner of the Department of Records. Thank you for inviting me to testify today on the impact of tangled titles in Philadelphia and ways to support those suffering with tangled titles. I'm joined today by Frank Breslin, Revenue Commissioner, Melissa Long, Director of Housing and Community Development, and James Arrows Jr., Chief Assessment Officer. First, I thank Chairperson Gautier and Council Member Gilmore Richardson for the introduction of this resolution and their leadership on this issue. I also thank City Council for recently including $7.6 million in new funding for tangled titles as part of its Neighborhood Preservation Initiative. Tangled title is a crisis confronting thousands of Philadelphia homeowners with a disparate impact on communities of color. Since 2003, the city has supported Philadelphia VIP to help over 2,000 tangled title clients, most of whom were persons of color. Tangled title prevents one from exercising basic rights of homeownership, taking out a home equity loan, modifying a mortgage, selling the property, or qualifying for many programs such as the Longtime Owner Occupants Program, LOOP, the Pennsylvania Property Tax Rebate, the new Restore, Renew, and Repair Program, and Basic System Repair Program, to name just a few. To address this crisis, the Records Department has partnered with Register of Wills Tracy Gordon on our probate deferment initiative. The Records Department, as you've heard, is waiving recording fees for participants, a savings of almost $260 per deed. I applaud Register Gordon for her leadership on this issue. Additionally, my colleagues at the Department of Revenue and Law Department are working with Council to address eligibility rules for real estate tax assistance programs. The city also recognizes the importance of estate planning to prevent tangled titles and supports Philly VIP and their community partners to provide educational workshops to raise awareness and encourage homeowners to work with VIP to make a will. But we all agree that more needs to be done to address this crisis. Recently, I began conversations with other jurisdictions experiencing the tangled title crisis and with a national legal expert on this issue in an effort to inform our collective efforts in Philadelphia. It will take a collaborative and innovative combination of funding, both governmental and philanthropic, additional legal assistance, creative programming, and legal reforms to combat this problem at scale. The administration is committed to this effort. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today. The administration looks forward to working with council and community advocates to support those burdened with tangled titles. I would be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Leonard, for your testimony and for your work in this area. I'd especially like to commend your office for waiving the fees associated with recording a deed with the Records Department. In your testimony, you mentioned that you've been talking to a national legal expert in other jurisdictions, and I wanted to know if you could expound upon any early learnings or ideas that these conversations have generated.
Yeah, we're still in the early learning stages, and I haven't had the opportunity to speak in more detail with the Register or with you all, but I plan to do so in more detail in the near future. But to summarize, I had a call a few weeks ago. We had a call with Legal Services Organization and a nonprofit in southeastern Louisiana, where they've experienced and continue to experience since Katrina and through Ida, the impact of tangled title in a really acute manner because it's been most closely felt in terms of the flooding as a result of hurricanes and climate change. So similarly, we've learned to Philadelphia, folks in those communities have a similar tradition or a history for many similar reasons as here of passing down property in an informal but not strictly legal manner. In terms of doing all the required paperwork. And when you have these climate disasters more frequently, they've been faced with, like I said, a very acute climate crisis, whereas the Register explained, and other council members, folks can't qualify for FEMA or other available flood aid. We also learned from them that there's other jurisdictions that I plan on talking with, and that's in Puerto Rico, who've also experienced tangled title most acutely with respect to flooding, and then areas in Florida. Those are 3 examples we learned of, and in response to something Councilman Jones asked about what states are doing it right, we've started to look into. Louisiana has enacted changes to their state law that helps ease the burden of probate on folks who with estates or homes of a certain size and below, as a means of combating the problem at scale. The professor, I've communicated with over email and have yet to speak with him directly, but he's the author. He's from the University of Texas A&M School of Law, and he's the author of a national uniform law regarding heirs property. And I believe Register Gordon mentioned that phrase. That's a phrase I've learned is common in other jurisdictions. Tangled title is a phrase unique to here, I think. That law, uniform law, has been enacted in about a dozen states, mostly southern. What I learned was that this is also an issue for not just urban areas, but rural areas. It afflicts farmers, including, we learned, Black farmers in southern communities. We learned that the USDA has incorporated this uniform law into its farm bill in the past few years to help ease folks with tangled title to qualify for farm aid. So those are some of the beginning conversations that we've had. And as I said, I look forward to talking with you all, with Register Gordon, about what type of strategies these other jurisdictions have employed or are employing, and how we might learn from them.
Thank you so much. Thank you for doing that work. And I'm excited about how we might employ some of those best practices here. I'd also like to ask about transfer tax exemptions. I believe there's an exemption for transfers between certain direct relatives, like grandparents, parents, children, and siblings. Can you clarify that exemption for the record and what it means for someone who is entitled to receive a property with a tangled title from the estate of a parent or grandparent?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. And there's when you and Register Gordon and I talked, and her solicitor Sharon Wilson talked very extensively about this in preparation for the program, to make sure that transfer tax burden, which is much more significant sometimes than the fees, would not be an issue here. So when an estate transfers property to an heir as part of its probate process, that transfer is tax exempt, as are property transfers between relatives of certain degrees. That includes parents to children, grandparents to grandchildren, brothers to sisters, for example.
Okay, thank you so much for clarifying that. I have a question for revenue, and then I'll open up for my colleagues to ask questions. Do we have Commissioner Breslin on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
Okay. Wonderful. So my question for you is, if the title to the property that I live in is tangled, and I approach the Revenue Department to enter into a payment plan for back taxes, or if I was looking to set up an installment plan for my property taxes, can I enter into a payment plan with Revenue, and what documents would I have to provide to do that? And also, do I need to be working with a lawyer or another type of advocate to set up that type of plan? And before you answer, can you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, I'm Frank Breslin, Revenue Commissioner, and thank you for that question or those questions. I'll start kind of in reverse. To start it, there is no representative required, so a taxpayer can work on their own behalf. But certainly they can have an attorney or an accountant represent them, or they can have somebody, just, another relative that sometimes people will come in to assist. In the case of tangled title, they are eligible to get into our owner-occupied payment agreement. And that owner-occupied payment agreement is an income-based agreement. So anyone can get into, we call it an UPA. Anyone is eligible to get in, including people with tangled title. And that program puts them into a tier. It's one of 5 tiers based on income. Tier 4 and Tier 5 applying to people with the lowest income, and Tier 4 has payments as low as $25 a month, and Tier 5 payments as low as, believe it or not, $0 a month. So people can stay in compliance and fully protect their house from foreclosure by getting into an UPA, and they can do that even if they have tangled title. And that Tier 4 and 5 payment agreement also, in completion of that payment agreement, all interest and penalties are waived. So that happens automatically. In terms of proof of tangled title, basically a person has to come in and show that there's lots of documentation, and I'll say that it's all available. We worked very closely with counsel and the legal services community to form the UPA guidelines. They're all in regulation form, and it shows extensive types of documents that can be supplied to prove tangled title. So, and that could be a copy of the will, a copy of a death certificate, and a birth certificate showing that there's a relationship. It could be showing that you've been residing in the property and can prove that by supplying utility bills that shows you've been paying the costs of maintaining the property. So there's a lot of ways to do that. And one thing that I'll add to that process too is on the application for the owner-occupied payment agreement is I believe it's like a checkoff box where a person can ask to have a housing counselor assist them with the process, but also realizing that, right now, the UPA guidelines say that the tangled title has to be resolved in a time frame. We have not enforced that, realizing that this is a significant issue and it could take quite some time for people to resolve that tangled title. But we want them not just to get into the UPA payment agreement and become compliant. Certainly we want that, but we want to give them, guide them through a process so that they can clear this tangled title.
Thank you. Thank you for that information. Does your answer to that question change if I'm someone that does not live in the property? Like a property is intended to be passed down to me and it has a tangled title, but I don't live in it. Can I still have access to those city programs?
You can still get into a payment agreement. It would not be an owner-occupied payment agreement, and so it's a different program. It's not a program in the regulation that has in our tax regulations that has all those prescribed guidelines for tangled title, but a person still could get into a payment agreement with tangled title.
Thank you so much. And I see that Councilmember Gilmore Richardson has questions. Councilmember?
Yes, thank you so much, Councilmember Gaudier, and thank you so much, Commissioner Breslin. I have questions for both you and Commissioner Leonard, so I'll start with Commissioner Breslin. First, just wanting to thank you so much for always answering the phone and taking the calls, and for all the meetings that we've had with your office and with my team, and the multiple conversations we've had over the last several weeks. I just wanted to start by saying thank you. I wanted to quickly ask you a question about equitable ownership, and how, you talked about it with Councilmember Gaudier, how we could potentially expand some tax relief programs to Philadelphians with tangled titles. And we know about the regulations you all have with UPA, and we've talked about this in our meetings. But if individuals can prove equitable ownership, particularly those that may have been involved with the tangled title or deed for 10 plus years, is there any way for us to expand programs like Loop, to ensure that more Philadelphians are eligible for some of the revenue-based programs that we have available, particularly for those suffering with tangled titles and deeds, knowing that it's a very expensive process and they have to pay other fees as well. And I know we've had this conversation and we're working towards it, and we're committing, to having additional meetings, but I just wanted to ensure that individuals understand that we are looking at ways to modify our tax relief programs if possible to help more individuals, particularly those who are in tangled titles and deeds.
Yes. I mean, thank you for acknowledging those meetings, and thank you for your partnership in those meetings and with you and your staff. A result of those meetings is my team has been working on draft regulations similar to those for UPA, so that we could expand that to Loop, and you should be seeing those shortly because I saw them this week. They're still being reviewed. So I think that's a great step forward. Also, I think the conversations that we've had, and we've had, several conversations on the record and meetings where we've talked about the outreach work that the Revenue Department does, and most of that is geared towards, our tax programs and compliance, but has not been a real focus maybe on tangled title, although we always have that information there. So now what we're going to try to do is take back, this information that has come out of our conversations and out of, the study and everything that's been learned, our conversations with Commissioner Leonard. And we're going to try to incorporate that formally into all of our outreach. Revenue has a pretty robust communications team, so we're going to try to make that part of our in-person outreach at events that generally we partner with council to do those in person, and that's starting again now as we get into more of a post-COVID environment. And also we're going to add information into our delinquency notices and other notices that we put out, guiding people of what resources are available for tangled title.
Okay. Well, thank you very, very much, Commissioner Breslin. I'm so encouraged by the news about the regulations, particularly around Loop, because I know we had extended conversations there. And I wanted to quickly give a shout out, and I do this every meeting that we have, but I have to do it on the record for the hearing, to Vicki from your department, who is with us day in and day out in the community. She was with us for the fair we had in Council President Clark's district on York Street. She's been with us with all the faith-based community organizations that we work with every Sunday before the pandemic. Even throughout the pandemic, she's been on all of our virtual events. So I want to give a special shout out to Vicki from Revenue for being there and educating our constituents about the programs available. And I look forward to continuing to work with you, Commissioner Breslin, on those relief programs for individuals suffering with tangled titles and deeds. And Madam Chair, I quickly have a question for Commissioner Leonard.
Go ahead.
Okay. Commissioner Leonard, again, thank you for your work, for your partnership, for your collaboration, for everything you have done to really move the needle on this issue. I wanted to quickly circle back to an issue that I know we've had robust conversation about around some of the challenges our departments face relative to our systems talking to each other so that we have the most up-to-date, accurate information. And for me, it's particularly the interface with the records department, then Philodocs, and then OPA, and the information we see on the web, because that helps us to understand sort of where a property is in process. So at any rate, I wanted to just offer the opportunity for you to speak to how we are going to continue to work through some of those IT challenges so that we have some of the most up-to-date information available for constituents and for the legal aid organizations, right, that need to utilize these systems to do research for constituents that have tangled titles and deeds.
Yep, thank you for that question, council member. The source for property ownership data is the records department, because it all ultimately that all derives from a deed that's recorded in our office. It's then that data on an ongoing basis is shared out through a variety of means to OPA and then downstream into the Department of Revenue. There has been, some of these systems are legacy systems, and there's been, and they pose, technical challenges that have resulted in discrepancies in property data, which I'm sure many of you and your staff have experienced on behalf of your constituents. And we've all, folks at this table, have collectively spoken to many of you, several of you on council about the issue. There's an ongoing effort, as we've mentioned to some of you, among revenue, OPA, and OIT and other related departments that share property data to clean up essentially the discrepancies that are legacy discrepancies among our systems, and also an effort to put in place a technological fix going forward that will mitigate the likelihood that those type of data discrepancies occur among departments. And I think, I know we have, council member, an upcoming meeting scheduled with you, to myself, Mark Wheeler, to brief you on that matter. So that's the big picture of in terms of what we're doing to try and fix the issue.
No, I want to thank you so much for your work, and also for your department's work through the pandemic, right? I still use Philodocs, even when I'm not on my city computer for constituent cases, and you all are really working hard to get the cases processed as soon as possible. I think I went on yesterday, and you all are up to August 5th, I believe. So I just wanted to thank you very, very much, because I know it's just extraordinary circumstances because of COVID, but you all are doing a wonderful job. So thank you very, very much, Commissioner. And Madam Chair, if possible, I do have a question for DHCD in the Planning Department, and also for the Office of Property Assessment.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you very, very much, Madam Chair. So Melissa, I see you there. Thank you so much for all of your work and working with us on this matter. We have been talking for months now, even back to the budget hearings earlier this year, and we worked through some challenges with the Tangled Title Fund Committee that you all have addressed, and I thank you for doing that and increasing the diversity on the committee. But I wanted to get on the record, if you could just detail the breakdown of spending on tangled titles and deeds over the last few years. If you could break it down for the Tangled Title Fund commitment, and sort of where it's coming from, and detail the Housing Trust Fund dollars as well. I just want the committee members and the general public to have an idea how significant the MPI infusion will be to the work that we do on tangled titles in the city.
Yes, and I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Melissa Long, Director of DHCD. And again, I want to thank both you and Chairperson Gautier for all your work and commitment to this very serious issue. And I really appreciate you bringing all the partners together. And I'm looking forward to, continuing that work and working on the exciting work that Commissioner Leonard discussed, and some of the outreach strategies that I know we discussed at our last meeting. So there's a lot of great work to be done, and I appreciate both of your levels of commitment, and look forward to that. Yes, so I can, if you give me 1 sec, I'm going to pull this up. We do, our office does provide over the last 3 years a commitment of approximately $500,000 to VIP. That's broken out $100,000 in CDBG for legal counseling, City Gen of 62.5 and 100 of HTF for the Tangled Title Fund. And we are so grateful for the Housing Trust Fund new. VIP receives a commitment of support of $290,000. We are also able to support, I have my colleague here, Michael Froelich, I see him up in my screen, $125,000 to intake and legal advice to CLS, and then an additional $85,000 to PLA. And so that is for Tangled Title Fund work. For folks that already have, households that already have tangled titles. I do, I think, want to point out too that we, like Madam Register, very on to the importance of having a will, and the partners have been working over the last year to incorporate that. I think we'll hear that in testimony from VIP, those efforts, and we really look forward to increasing that and increasing the awareness.
No, thank you very, very much. And if you could just talk about BSRP as well, and how that program is not available for Philadelphians with tangled titles and deeds, and if there are any updates around if we were able to change some of those barriers in the program.
Yeah, I think, we continued to work with, my colleague Dave Thomas over at PHDC and Partners. And I think we're committed to continuing to work on, again, raising awareness and coming up with some new procedures on how to address that. So we'll continue that work.
Okay, great. And then my last question is for Philadelphians who may not qualify for legal aid services but still can't afford the legal fees. What are we doing for those folks that are sort of in the middle, who still need legal aid representation and help?
And don't qualify. I think this is the potential for this new funding that may not have the income restrictions, and we can again continue to work with partners to come up with ways on how to address and meet their needs. So again, I think a lot of work. We're excited about continuing the conversation and a commitment, because we recognize that too is an issue.
Okay, yep. Excellent. That is excellent, because I've heard from several families that say, we're just a little over the income eligibility for legal aid assistance, but we still can't afford the $10,000 for the lawyer fees. So what are we doing to sort of help those folks along? Because I look at this issue also as a home ownership preservation issue, right? As a homelessness prevention issue.
Totally.
Generational legacy and wealth issue. So how are we helping folks stay in their homes? And this is another program to do that. Okay, thank you very, very much.
Okay, thank you.
Is Chief Assessor Arrows available?
Good morning, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, Councilmember Gauthier, and fellow members of the committee. For the record, I'm James Arrows, Chief Assessment Officer for the Office of Property Assessment.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for being here and for your work, and always for your availability. I know we had a meeting as well, like my office did, with Commissioner Leonard and also with Commissioner Breslin. So I just wanted to get on the record today for the hearing on this issue around the conversation that we've had about the technology systems in the city and some of the challenges that we face around, getting our records updated on our publicly available websites, but even in Philadocs, because folks can still do a public search on Philadocs. So if you could just detail for us some of the challenges for the record today and how you all are working to remedy those issues.
Sure.
So I think as most council members are aware, we began our transition to our new computer-assisted mass appraisal system, abbreviated, we call it CAMA. That began in February of last year when certain parts of the system went live, and it's continued since then. Currently, OPA, all previous functionality and job roles that the OPA did prior to CAMA are fully functional in the CAMA system. The CAMA system is our system of record, and for the website in particular, that means that the values that are on the website, the property.phil.gov, and excuse me, let me back up. So the market values that are seen there, the assessment breakouts, and the ownership are being pulled from the CAMA system, as that is the system of record. So as we began that integration, we had a transition from some of the legacy systems that Commissioner Leonard spoke about. So in phases, we moved into taking the records from the CAMA system and uploading them to the public website. So ownership was not the first piece of information that began updating on the site. The first piece was the market values. That began in February. And but for several months now, the ownership has been getting pulled from the CAMA system, so that feeds directly to the property website. And so throughout that process, we worked with, in conjunction with OIT and records, to make sure that we were able to pull in the deed changes and work out any bugs or glitches with some of the transitions. So we feel like those have pretty much been ironed out. So if I don't have the exact date of the last pull that we got from revenue, but it is fairly close to the date that you mentioned, as far as where records has proofed information from. And as they proof records going forward and upload them and that information into Philodocs, we'll be receiving regular feeds from them that will automatically update ownership in the OPA records, which will then feed the ownership that is displayed on the public property website.
I thank you for that work. And the reason why I was asking, and I'm actually going on to the site now, does your department information with this new CAMA system talk to either Atlas or the new Eclipse system in any way? Because I know if you do an L&I property history lookup, that typically some of that information that's like on Philodocs will show up under the property history under L&I's publicly available search feature as well. So which computer systems does your department speak with relative to other city departments?
Sure. So our system speaks to, I believe, all of the departments you mentioned. So we can make an update, and that goes to, I'm not the technical expert, but I'll do my best for the moment. So the city's AIS system, I believe it's called, which feeds different departments. I would not speak for every department as to where any ownership official record that they may display or see, if that's always pulled from the OPA. But once it's updated in our system, it does push out to that citywide system, and it's available on the city's data bridge for departments that are looking to pull that information from the OPA's records.
Got it. Okay, I just wanted to get clarity there because I was looking at some of these sites yesterday. Okay, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. So if there are no more questions from members of the committee for this panel, Ms. Alford, can you please call the next panel to testify?
Rita Hawk, Kelly Gaffley, Gabrielle Morrison, Michael Froelich, Joanne Wardell, Dana Goldberg, and Heather Hewlett.
Okay, wonderful. Ms. Rita Hawk, are you there and connected?
I am indeed. Can everyone hear me?
Yes. Can you state your name for the record and please proceed with your testimony?
Sure. I'm Rita Hawk, Executive Director of Philadelphia VIP. Thank you, Madam Chair and council members, for inviting us to share our roles in the bigger picture of tangled title legal work here today. More importantly, in addition to my Executive Director role, I do want to say that I'm formerly a case manager who helped many tangled title clients navigate their legal issues at VIP. So VIP is a 40-year-old nonprofit founded by the Philadelphia Bar Association, and we have a very unique mission: recruiting and training private lawyers who volunteer to represent our clients for free. We do this in collaboration with direct legal aid like Community Legal Services and Philadelphia Legal Assistance to kind of bridge that gap in availability of civil legal services. So in pursuing this mission, and thanks to its unique model of leveraging the capacity of the private bar, VIP also connects the well-resourced law firm and corporate communities with the low-income people who make up over half of Philadelphia's population. Since 2003, with critical support from DHCD, then OHCD, VIP has actually partnered with private attorneys to work on untangling titles on behalf of over 3,000 low-income Philadelphians at risk of losing their homes. We're so grateful to DHCD for its long-standing commitment to addressing this issue, and we're really excited to see the city building out its pool of resources for addressing tangled titles. So 18 years ago, I dug out some old city council testimony from 2003 just to check. These resources helped just a handful of Philadelphians, but by 2021, thanks to this commitment, we've been helping hundreds every year. And I'm confident that we will collectively expand our reach to thousands in years to come and cement ourselves as a national leader on tangled titles. I'm glad Madam Register actually briefly touched on this being a Philadelphia issue, and it is certainly true that Philadelphia raised the concept of the tangled title and has identified this large a volume. But Councilmember Jones, to your point, and as Commissioner Leonard briefly demonstrated, I believe Philadelphia is not unique in having this issue, and nor should we be ashamed of this problem. We should be proud that we have researched it, we've acknowledged it, and we are invested in resolving it. Over the past couple of years, cities like Houston, Waco, Texas, and Pittsburgh have reached out to VIP and its peer organizations to learn how Philadelphia is addressing this issue, and we're thrilled that they can learn from our experiences to launch their programs more efficiently. A perfect example of the learning we can share includes a shout out to the Department of Revenue, because we've told these other community leaders that our programs would not be possible without the extensive collaboration that goes into creating amazing resources like UPA. I will pause there. I'll stop there and let you all ask me questions if you want to about these other communities across the country. But what I'm here to talk about today, as others will discuss in more detail, there is no typical tangled title case. No matter the different paths a tangled title can take, one thing is certain. The vast majority are identified years after they occurred, and none of them can be navigated without financial resources. Concurrently, the housing crisis continues to worsen, and there is growing demand for legal assistance with tangled title, often at a crisis point when home loss is imminent. It became apparent that proactive action is just as important as the reactive resources. So as a response, in 2019, with increased support from DHCD, VIP designed a pilot preventative estate planning program. We call this our Preserving Homeownership and Family Wealth Initiative, and it now supports homeownership via its tangled title component and family wealth retention through estate planning. Having a will in place is one of the most effective ways a homeowner can prevent a tangled title from arising. Doing so spares family members the complications and the hassles of trying to unwind a tangled title, which can take over a year to resolve with an attorney on average. Meanwhile, an average estate planning matter takes an attorney, and a volunteer attorney at that, just a few hours to complete. The tricky piece here is sharing the importance of estate planning, because we've often found that our average clients will say, "What do I need a will for? I'm not rich." Right? So through our pilot effort, VIP designed a scalable estate planning outreach program that includes evidence-based outreach components and remains community partnership focused. First, we partnered with the Philadelphia Behavior Sciences Initiative to design a randomized control trial to test the effectiveness of different types of outreach to raise awareness of the importance of estate planning. We're now wrapping up the initial phase, which actually tests the success of a letter versus a flyer, and whether a stamped addressed envelope produces increased response rates. Second, we know from VIP small business outreach that client engagement is most effective when performed in collaboration with groups that have already earned community trust. For this reason, we have deliberately partnered with specific community organizations like CDCs, NACs, religious institutions, and a city council office. These organizations co-present VIP's estate planning services to their constituents and or refer local homeowners to VIP for estate planning. Finally, with over 10,000 attorneys practicing in the Philadelphia area, there's ample opportunity to deploy lawyers in a volunteer capacity to address this legal need. VIP uses a different number of approaches to inspire attorneys to engage with the larger community, and we've seen great success in drafting these documents for hundreds of clients over just a few years. With sufficient resources, we hope to be able to use what we have learned to scale this service and help more families across Philadelphia. We're so grateful to DHCD, City Council, the Register of Wills, the Commissioner of Records, and everybody else on this call for leading this renewed commitment to making a meaningful difference in the tangled title crisis. The legal improvements that are going to follow will allow many Philadelphians who honestly stand alone in a very complex legal system to get the help they need and hopefully prevent future tangled titles from arising.
Thank you so much. And we're going to let all the panelists testify before we open up for questions. Ms. Kelly Gasly, can you please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony?
Sure. Good morning. I'm Kelly Gasly, the Managing Attorney at Philadelphia VIP. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you to Chair Gautier, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, and all of the committee members here today to talk about this important issue. And I also echo Ritha's thanks to DHCD for its longstanding support and commitment to this issue. There are a few different types of tangled title issues, which I just wanted to stress. And you heard Sharon Wilson so aptly described earlier the probate matters. That is really the most common issue that we see come up with tangled title cases, where we're dealing with a home titled in the name of a deceased family member. There are a few other types that I just wanted to make sure we touch on, because as Garrett mentioned as well in his testimony about the Pew report, it did not capture all of the tangled titles out there. So one of those other types of tangled title issues are matters that are resolved through a quiet title action. So these might be a title case where the client is the buyer in a rent-to-own agreement and still does not have title to the home in their name. Or it might be where our client who's come into us for help is the victim of a forged deed or a fraudulent conveyance where they were defrauded into taking title out of their names. Or it might be someone who has an adverse possession claim to their property, which I know so many of us hear inklings about, and there's a lot of talk about in the community adverse possession. But you can make a claim, a proper claim to title, if you've been there for a long period of time and have been acting like the owner of the property. In all of these matters, you file an action in the Court of Common Pleas, which is our trial level court here in Philadelphia, and go through a process of providing notice to the opposing party, and then the case unfolds from there depending on whether the opposing party responds. There are also simpler title issues that we call deed transfers at VIP, which are those more straightforward title cases where the owner of the property is around and willing and able to transfer title over to our client. And these matters, they're much more straightforward. It's great if we can get people in the door when their case is this simple. A common example is something like, a godmother who is the owner of a house and has moved away, wants to give the property to her goddaughter who's been living there, taking care of it, paying the taxes, and they just need help drawing up a proper deed, getting the transfer tax paid, and getting the deed recorded. That's something that is far easier to take care of while we've got everyone around, rather than once the godmother, really kind of, falls out of touch or passes away herself. So those are the issues that at VIP our volunteer attorneys spend a lot of their time on, all three of those types. All of them disproportionately affect Black and Brown Philadelphians, like we've already heard a lot about today. We know that we have actually a really high home ownership rate for Blacks here in Philadelphia, which is really encouraging, but we also know that unfortunately a minority of them do not have wills, as Madam Register already discussed. So, we have that racial lens and that backdrop for this issue is it's not just a home ownership issue, it's really a race issue as well. The way that VIP approaches this tangled title problem and this racial problem that we have here in Philadelphia is through three ways. One is trying to prevent tangled titles from beginning in the first place through estate planning, which Madam Register and my colleague Ritha already touched on. The second way is through education and awareness of what a tangled title issue is and how important it is to resolve right away. As I said recently in the presentation that Pew did on their report, time is really not our friend in these matters. We need to really get folks to come into us early, as soon as their family member who owned the home has passed away, as soon as they've entered, maybe before they've entered into that rent-to-own agreement, whatever the case may be, getting into us and just saying, hey, this is the situation I'm in. What can I do now to make sure it doesn't become a problem? And getting legal counsel right away means that we can turn what could have been a complicated tangled title problem, if it wasn't addressed for years, into something much simpler that we can address now. The third way that we have to solve our tangled title problem here in the city is just making sure we're resolving the tangled title issues that already exist. It requires consistent, persistent, and thorough legal work by legal professionals. At VIP, we match over 100 new tangled title clients with volunteers every year. Before we send a client out to a volunteer, we work with that client to figure out who's in their family tree, who has a legal interest in the home, to reach out to those family members, and to really get the case started and make sure that we have a path to getting the client title. And then once we match a client with a volunteer attorney, we stay involved with the case, we provide our volunteers with support, we build up substantial training materials and templates for our volunteers over the years because we don't want them reinventing the wheel. We want them focusing on helping their client because, as Rita said, no tangled title case is the same as the one that came before it. So we want our volunteer attorneys spending time in working through their unique client's tangled title situation and leaning on us as they need to help that client get title. All of this work really relies on money as well, which we've talked a lot about today. There are costs involved with resolving these title issues. So we're really grateful that we've had the Tangled Title Fund in existence for over 20 years now, actually, which pays for administrative costs associated with clearing title to homes. So things like the transfer taxes that were discussed earlier. So this is really how VIP has approached resolving tangled title issues over the years, and I'm really grateful to have one of our volunteers, Gabby Morrison, who is here today to talk more about what it's like to be a volunteer attorney working on one of these matters. And I just want to conclude, because Gabby will cover it far better than I can, that we at VIP really believe that addressing tangled title can have a really widespread impact on our city. Register Gordon, Madam Register, really touched on this well in her testimony, that we are helping individuals by keeping people in their homes, but we're also helping families because we're helping them preserve wealth within their families that can be passed down from generation to generation. And by doing that, we're helping our community. We're providing particularly our Black and brown neighbors with secure home ownership and trying to advance racial equity in our city as a result of this. So we're excited and we're energized at VIP to bring attention to this issue that we've been working on, and really looking forward to working with City Council and everyone testifying today, who I'm so grateful I already know and work so closely with, to keep expanding upon this work. Thank you so much for having me to testify today.
Thank you so much for your testimony and for your work. Ms. Gabrielle Morrison, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Gabrielle Morrison. Can you hear me? Great. So as I said, my name is Gabrielle Morrison. I'm a full-time trial attorney and I'm a Philly VIP volunteer. I've been involved with Philly VIP since summer of 2018 when I joined the Tangled Title Group as a summer associate at my law firm. Philly VIP's work, particularly tangled title cases, piqued my interest because the ease at which families could lose their homes in Philadelphia was very concerning. I could see the effects of the housing crisis as I rode through the trolley from Delaware County in Yeadon, right next door to West Philly, to Center City every day. The homes were dilapidated or abandoned, or sometimes it just simply needed some TLC. But as soon as I hit a specific street, the atmosphere began to change. Homes look renovated and in good condition. And another trend that I observed on my trolley rides is a change in demographic. West and Southwest Philadelphia is mostly populated with Black people, including individuals from the African and Caribbean diaspora. Now, this resonated with me because I'm from an Afro-Caribbean diaspora, if you can't hear my accent. And I understand the value of what a home to someone from similar background means. I wondered what led to these causes and conditions in Philadelphia as an immigrant, and my involvement with Philly VIP answered my questions. Philly VIP provided online resources and in-person resources like manuals and presentations to assist volunteers to understand their role and properly handle cases. Philly VIP staff is always open to answering questions, especially for someone like me who does strictly litigation work, and provided a lot of guidance when needed. So I appreciate that type of assistance and support. It makes it easier for attorneys like myself and others who are in private practice or criminal practice to confidently handle the cases and never hesitate to say yes when Phila VIP seeks volunteers, hence my continued support. And I continue to work with Philly VIP because resolving tangled titles help to maintain the culture and roots of the marginalized individuals in Philadelphia communities. And a big part of fostering culture and passing generational wealth and knowledge is dependent on a settling ground, which is the home. The work I do with Philly VIP helps me to help people to keep their homes, access resources to maintain their homes, and give marginalized populations an opportunity to build, which is an opportunity that otherwise would not have happened. It's very rewarding to hear the happiness and sense of relief in my clients' voices, especially trying to navigate the convoluted systems of Philadelphia. Legal home ownership services like VIP and other organizations are very essential. You know, navigating the probate process is difficult and often expensive for the population that we serve. And so for me, Philly VIP and similar organizations should be a staple for this city and continue to grow such organizations and add more organizations, and so that we can ensure that all Philadelphia residents have an opportunity to comfortably reside in the city. And I want to emphasize comfortably, and build their homes and enjoy the fruits of the city. You know, it's open for a lot of individuals, and we want them to continue to, you know, bask in where they grew up. So I will continue to work with Philly VIP and encourage my colleagues to do so as well. And I hope the city sees the immense value of this organization and continues to support the mission. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony and for your vital volunteer service to our constituents. We really appreciate you. Michael Froelich, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, everybody. Especially good morning, Chair Gautier, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, and members of the committee. My name is Michael Froelich, and I'm the managing attorney of the Homeownership and Consumer Rights Unit here at CLS. And I'm very pleased to talk today about this topic of tangled titles, the role that CLS plays in helping our clients resolve their titles, and how resolving a title is a critical step to closing the racial wealth gap in Philadelphia. We've heard from so many witnesses this morning discuss tangled titles, and I'm really grateful to be in this community. I wanted to especially thank Ms. Mahan for talking about her personal experience at the top of the hearing. I'm not sure if she's still listening. I know she's at home today caring for her grandchildren, but I really appreciate, Ms. Mahan, your courage and your to step forward and talk about your story this morning. I had prepared remarks for this morning, but so much of what I had prepared is you've already heard from other witnesses, and mostly better presented and more succinctly presented than me. So I've gone through and sort of deleted large paragraphs, but I have submitted written testimony as well. CLS is really, really proud to partner with DHCD and other city partners to represent clients resolve their tangled titles. In the last 2 years that we have received dedicated funding from DHCD, we've represented over 200 homeowners with tangled titles and other home ownership issues. We've represented over 200 clients with tangled titles issues, and we have presented at 95 community trainings and outreach programs on tangled titles and other home ownership issues. We've recorded 67 new deeds, and this morning my CLS colleague Dot Goldberger texted me that she's on her way down to City Hall this morning to record 4 more. The process of resolving tangled titles ranges from the simple to the excruciatingly difficult. If the record owner of a home dies without a will, but all intestate heirs are known and cooperative, we usually can resolve the title within a few months. But if we have trouble locating heirs or the heirs are not immediately helpful, the process can drag on for well more than a year. And so much of this work needs to be done before heirs are even in a position where they can go to the Register of Wills and raise their estate. But in addition to raising estates with the Register of Wills, we resolve tangled titles in all sorts of other ways, as Kelly Gasly mentioned. We file lawsuits called quiet title complaints in the Court of Common Pleas. We file petitions directly with orphans courts as an alternative to raising estates. We do deeds of confirmation to clean up complicated co-ownership deeds that many people here refer to as South Philly trusts. We track down long-lost owners. We negotiate resolutions to rent-to-own agreements that have gone south. Sometimes homeowners who have raised their loved ones' estates years ago, but never dealt with the deed to the family home, come for help. So there's a lot more really unusual and tricky and situations that we help clients with. As the Pew report found, even the simplest tangled title case can cost over $9,000 to resolve, and most clients that CLS represent have far from simple cases. And so we are deeply appreciative of the city's investment in additional funding to address tangled titles as part of the NPI bond. And we look forward for the opportunity to increase our work in this area. Now, one of the most important pieces of our city's tangled title problem, and Kelly Gasly mentioned this, and others mentioned it as well, is that tangled titles do not affect all areas of the city equally. According to the Pew report, homes with tangled titles are disproportionately located in census tracts with higher Black and brown populations. And at CLS, 84% of our tangled title clients identify as Black, and an additional 15% identify as Hispanic or Latino. It's no secret we have a yawning racial wealth gap in the United States, where the median white household is reported to have 10 times the wealth of the median Black household. And homeownership is a vital, vital part of closing this racial wealth gap, and tangled titles too often thwart this growth of intergenerational wealth. But as others have testified, resolving already tangled titles is only one side of the coin, and we must also be proactive. Madam Register has done an amazing job in getting the message out to neighborhoods throughout the city about home preservation, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. And she does with a clear message. Everyone needs to plan, prepare, protect. And that means having conversations now with your children and heirs about what you want to have happen to your house, and it means having a will. Commissioner Leonard mentioned Dr. Thomas Mitchell. He's the Texas law professor who won the MacArthur Genius Award last year for his work on preserving Black home ownership. And in his work, Dr. Mitchell discusses not just a racial home ownership gap, but a racial will making or a racial estate planning gap. And according to Dr. Mitchell, 65% of white families in America have wills, but only 23% of African American families. And what's more, when you look at the college-educated folks, 75% of white Americans with a college education have a will. Only 33% of African Americans with a college education have a will. And I really do think that working together, legal services programs, city officials, the Register of Wills, and others can not just address existing title problems from the past, but can ensure that future generations do not have these issues. So again, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. This is a critical moment for tangled title issues in our city. And on behalf of our clients, we are so grateful to City Council, DHCD, Madam Register, Commissioner Leonard, and other city officials for really rising to meet this moment.
Thank you, Michael, for your work and for that testimony. Dana Goldberg, are you here and connected?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you state your name for the record and please proceed with your testimony?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. My name is Dana Goldberg, and I'm the legal director at Senior Law Center here in Philadelphia. I'd like to say a thank you to Councilperson Gautier for convening this, and all of the council members for this opportunity to speak to you about the work of Senior Law Center and the importance of tackling what has become known as tangled title in our city. I have prepared written testimony, and like Mike, I'm going to excise some of what's already been testified to, and I'm going to really focus on our work and on our population and the effect that this is having on the older community here in Philadelphia. Senior Law Center seeks justice for older adults through direct representation, education, and advocacy. We are the only nonprofit organization in Pennsylvania whose mission is dedicated solely to providing legal services to older persons. We're one of a few in the nation. We provide free legal assistance to thousands of seniors each year, including victims of elder abuse and financial exploitation, grandparents raising grandchildren, and older persons facing homelessness and housing crisis. We serve those who are 60 years of age and older, including those who are well into their 100s. The great majority of older people to whom we provide direct legal representation live in poverty at or well below 150% of the federal poverty level. Nearly half of Philadelphia older persons live at less than twice the poverty level, and nearly 10% of Philadelphia seniors live in deep poverty, which is less than 50% of the federal poverty level. Those we serve face not only the challenges of poverty, but also those of aging, which are distinct to each individual, but may include isolation, dependence on others for care, mobility and health challenges, cognitive decline, transportation, depression, and access to services. Housing is perhaps the most critical legal issue facing older people today in light of its enormous impact on every other aspect of life, health, safety, and security. Safe, habitable housing is a basic human right and a racial justice issue. The disparities in homelessness and foreclosure of Black, Indigenous, people of color communities are historic and persistent today. Without a safe, habitable home, there is no ability to age in place, access home and community-based health and support services, avoid institutionalization, and remain in the community near relatives, know neighbors, resources, and comfort. Philadelphia is often referred to as the city of neighborhoods. We pride ourselves on the distinct character of each neighborhood. Philadelphians in particular love those sections of their city where they were born, raised, and in many instances continue to live. The impact of redlining and racial prejudice, however, has left particular neighborhoods vulnerable. Because the individual's home is the setting in which home-based long-term care services are delivered, characteristics of the setting may affect how or what care is provided, or even whether it is feasible to provide care at all. In its 2018 Housing for Equity report, the city of Philadelphia reported over 88% of city homes were built prior to 1980. These aging properties must be repaired and maintained in order to keep our seniors and other residents housed. From the 2018 Public Health Management Corporation's Household Health Survey, the following percentages of homes were in need of plumbing, roofing, heating, cooling system, or some combination of the three. 41% in the Strawberry Mansion neighborhood, 42% in West Philadelphia, 49% in Germantown, and 26% in the remaining parts of the city. As long as titles remain tangled, those residents are not eligible to apply for free city or other home repair programs desperately needed. Additionally, without untangling the title, these older adults cannot avail themselves of needed property tax assistance programs or mortgage refinance programs, which will help ensure that they can remain in their homes. The COVID-19 crisis exacerbated the trend of younger generations moving back into the family homestead with older relatives. Unemployment, the need for care, the impact of isolation all resulted in an increase in multi-generational households. For many families, the older person's home is the only real estate asset in the family. We have also seen a rise in older generations caring for and raising children, grandchildren in the family due to both COVID and the continuing opioid crisis, as well as other family trauma requiring grandparents to step in to raise the children for the birth parents when they cannot. Protection and maintenance of the home becomes crucial to the lives, stability, and well-being of multiple generations. Tangled title is jeopardizing the stability of our neighborhoods and the stabilities of our families who have inhabited these neighborhoods for generations. In addition, homes are often the biggest financial asset older homeowners have. Many older adults have worked their entire lives to protect this family asset. Denying them access to services to continue and protect ownership punishes these hardworking individuals for growing older and for being poor. It also blocks the ability of this generation to pass on any wealth to the future generation and to keep that wealth in the community. As Pew noted, access to legal services makes an extraordinary difference between losing a home or clearing title and maintaining it for generations to come. Access to justice is essential to make real change in tangled title and homelessness prevention. But untangling title, as all of my colleagues have pointed out, takes time, effort, resources, and expertise. It takes access to an attorney and knowledge of a complex legal and judicial system. Often, untangling title involves probating the estate of multiple deceased relatives, as the Register of Wills pointed out. Older people who attempt probate on their own often do not have access to filing fee waivers and financial assistance made available by various city offices and organizations. And we're very appreciative of the Register of Wills and the changes that have been made, and we encourage those programs or the expansion of those programs. However, older people who are turned away either by the Register of Wills or the Recorder of Deeds for trying to do something on their own, not doing it properly, having put forward the fees or the out-of-pocket expenses, may lose those funds and have to start over again, and they may need help in terms of guidance through the process. Getting clear title is a first step, but it doesn't make property taxes affordable as a neighborhood gentrifies. It does not fix a roof or furnace, and it does not turn the water back on. We work to ensure that our clients get connected with the various programs and agencies that will ensure continued homeownership. We run legal life planning clinics, and we have for many, many years, including throughout COVID, to draft and execute essential planning documents, including simple wills, to empower older persons to direct to whom their property will go after their death. Life planning documents are an essential part of the tangled title solution. We serve hundreds of older people with these services every year as part of our many programs, but we have a long queue well into 2022 as demand also far outstrips our capacity, and we are one of the few who provides these services. The solutions to tangled title require these multiple steps. With clear title now and faith that their heirs will enjoy the same clear title, older persons are free to invest in and maintain their homes and age in place. Philadelphia continues to have one of the largest and poorest populations of older people in the nation. They have helped to build and grow our city and neighborhoods, raise their families. They are the matriarchs and patriarchs of our communities in each of your council districts. They deserve our attention and investment at this often vulnerable time of their lives. We at Senior Law Center are grateful for City Council's attention to address the issues of housing and homeownership for vulnerable older Philadelphians. Your support, both fiscal, programmatic, and in allied initiatives, will enable our older neighbors to get the legal and practical help they need. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that passionate testimony and for all of your work and advocacy. I see that there's a question from Councilmember Dom.
Thank you, Madam Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank also Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson for bringing this forward. And my question might be from Michael, but anyone can answer it. I have two questions. One is, can you kind of break down, Michael, I think you said in your testimony it was like $9,000 per case, roughly. I heard 9,500 to 9,000 in that range. Can you give me an idea what that breakdown is of those costs?
I can. Thank you so much for the question, Councilmember Dom, and for your sort of involvement in this issue. And if I may, another issue which causes tangled titles, the residential property wholesaler bill that you sponsored last year, and it's passed into law. So that number is drawn from the Pew's report. And if you, in my other screen here, I'm going down in their report just because they break it down. If you look at the report, towards the end, they have a table that talks about where those costs are. From our experience, here we go. This is table 6 of their report. If you look at it, they break it down to being attorney's fees are about half of the cost, plus an additional $3,500 for inheritance taxes, an advertising cost of about $500 to advertise that the estate has been raised, the probate fee for about $475, the recording fee of $257. Garrett Hinken, who testified earlier in the hearing, the author of the report, or the primary author of the report, puts this forward as a simple example of a home that is assessed at $88,800 at the time of death, where all of the heirs are known and cooperative.
And the reason for asking the question, I'm trying to figure out, is there a way that we can save on some of those costs maybe? I mean, I know the Bar Association, I believe, does have people that volunteer to help. Is there a way to expand that? I'm just throwing it out there just to try to figure out how we can get, I mean, it seems to me like we're only addressing potentially with the money we're funding, maybe 8 or 9% of the total tangled titles out there. And this is like a real issue, like how do we obtain more money? So that's just my thought there.
Yeah, I would defer to my colleagues at VIP about private and other legal services programs about private lawyer involvement. I will say that one of the best dollar for dollar way to resolve these issues is not to have them happen in the future, and that's why I think investing in helping Philadelphians have wills now and doing estate planning now, it makes things so much easier down the road. I know that Councilmember Gilmore Richardson has a bill pending that would work with funeral homes to get the word out about potential wills. I think that's a great step forward. But really, so much of the cost in unraveling a title is sort of investigative work and trying to track down where these heirs are, and working with them and counseling them and talking. It's not uncommon to come across tangled titles where there are individuals that own 1/12 of the property. And how do you, what do you say to somebody to say, you own sort of 1/12 of your great aunt's property? Really, it's only worth like $800 or $1,800 or something. And to try to work out sort of negotiation with a family member in order to sign a deed to part with that amount, or another legal document to part with that amount, since it's really not worth it. And yeah, that's some of the issues that we come across.
My thought is that if we have, let's just say, the top 20, 25 law firms in the city, and over the last 2 years, I'm not going to speak for them, but what I can see in the papers, it seems like law firms have done pretty well during this time period. And I think there's a lot of lawyers in the city who would love to help, and I think there are already many that are helping, but maybe we need to go to those top 25 law firms and say, hey, we need 5, 10, 15, 20 volunteers from each firm. And I think lawyers would feel really good about helping and doing this for free. I'm just putting it out there as an idea. Second comment I wanted to make, and I'm not sure if it could work or not, but I don't know if everyone's aware that we have about $1 billion of federal money that we're going to has to be from the feds. It should go to child tax credit and EITC. So while I'm listening to this testimonies, I'm saying to myself, how do we connect the dots here? How do we make sure that anyone who has a tangled title, like goes to a Campaign for Working Families United Way or BDT, and they figure out, wait a second, I can get $6,000 from an EITC, I can get $5,000 for child, whatever the numbers are, and I can use that to untangle this title. Is there connectivity on every one of the people that have tangled titles? Because I got to think that, I know they can't get issues with the revenue department because of the title, but they can get that money because it has nothing to do with real estate. And then they could free up their property and get all the other benefits.
Right, and I think this is an initiative that we at CLS really hope to be able to do seriously with the NPI bond. You know, historically, we haven't been able to prioritize wills because everybody we see is in crisis, and somebody's coming and they're losing their home at sheriff's sale, and then somebody else is coming who wants a will, and so we have sort of by necessity of limited resources address the person who's about to lose their home. With the NPI bond and the additional city investment, we hope to be able to take a breath and say, look, you know, for 24% of CLS clients own their own home, and 47%, almost half of our clients age 60 and over, own their own home. What if, just looking at CLS alone, what if before we left our clients, you know, we helped them with an SSI issue, a food stamp issue, an employment issue, you know, whatever type of issue, before we let them leave, we said, look, we got to do a will together. And that is just sort of like a low-hanging fruit, really. And then if that model works, we can expand on to, you know, the city's 24 housing counseling agencies that do such great work, and on to Benefits Data Trust and with other trusted community partners to offer this as an opportunity.
No, and I applaud CLS and all the others that you guys are doing great work. But I guess my question is, if I had a tangled title and I called you, Michael, and you said, hey, Alan, it costs $9,000 to do this, and I don't have the money, but if you said to me, go call BDT or Campaign for Working Families, and maybe you could fill out some of those forms and get the money. I'm just trying to get that connectivity going so that we can get that federal money, $1 billion, okay? 75,000 families qualify for this, almost 300,000 residents of our city. That's federal money that's free. We can use that money to like untangle these titles in some cases, because I kind of think there's a lot of connectivity here, and then they can apply to the city for some of these other programs. I think it should be an automatic. Anyone who goes for a title, a tangled title, should be connected to one of these sources for these other funds of federal money.
Yeah, so councilperson, so I can speak from Senior Law Center where we're working with the partners in terms of, we're always evaluating those families who are eligible not only for the new EITC money, but for any programs that are out there. We're not just working with the Tangled Title Fund, but we're looking at all the other resources that are available. We're doing a benefits checkup for our older people to see where can we take out money from the rest of the budget, get them resources for that then can go into the housing. So I believe that all of our partners are working on that now. I would stress with Mike the fact that the prevention part, and I know Registered Warden is right there with us, that is so important in terms of writing the wills. It also has to come on the back end of untangling the title. And we work with all of the large law firms. They're at our clinics, we're in their sites, we were pre-COVID. But what I can tell you is administering these programs within our agencies does take time, and it takes funds. And our population is at a critical point right now. If we don't get this population right now and get those wills written, you're going to have yet another generation of tangled title. So I do think that our commitment to the city, in addition to untangling those that are already tangled, is getting out there into the neighborhoods and giving some funding to get those wills written so we don't have another generation lost where this has not been repaired or they haven't directed to whom it's going to go.
Okay, I understand. Anyway, thank you all for your testimony, and I'm committed to trying to help get all of the tangled titles untangled. So whatever I can do to help, let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I apologize, we actually have two more panelists for this panel. So Heather Hewlett, can you please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony?
Jamie.
Yeah, good morning.
Jamie, excuse me, Jamie.
Yes, Madam Register.
Sorry to interrupt. I have another meeting to go to. I just wanted to make one correction. May I? For the record?
Go ahead.
Okay, so the Register of Wills have not turned anyone away from our probate deferment initiative, nor have we turned anyone away. We refer all our clients that have come directly to us, and we have the data to show you if you need to see it. We always refer our clients to one of the legal agencies. We do not turn anyone away. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think what we're starting here today is a collaboration. So I'm sure we're all going to learn a lot more, about what we're all doing and how. But thank you so much for your work and your participation today.
Thank you for the commitment to work with us, Councilman Dunn. Thank you for jumping on board. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. Heather Hewlett, can you please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony?
Good morning, thank you. My name is Heather Hewlett. I'm the Director of Legal Advocacy at Christian Legal Clinics of Philadelphia. Tangled Title is one of many of our practices. Like VIP, we utilize a network of volunteers to help low-income Philadelphians. So we touch everything from immigration to family law to land or tenant, some guardianship, record clearing, and unemployment. Since this past January, we've helped raise 12 estates for the assistance of PDI and Tangled Title Fund. They're on their way to finishing up. We have 22 that are still in the pipeline being worked on. As many have already acknowledged, Tangled Title is a crisis, and it needs attention, it needs money. I'm glad to see that it's getting both today. It needs free legal services. It contributes, as so many have said, to these blocks where all you see are boarded up houses. I live near Point Breeze, and it was boarded up houses, and now it's luxury condos. We're like handing neighborhoods away if we do nothing to address this. VIP, through their Tangled Title Fund and educational materials, have been lifesavers to me. You guys are so helpful with my practice, and the materials have actually helped so many of our clients directly take a lot of these steps. So I think the educational materials and just the information you can find through them are wonderful. The fund has been wonderful. They hear from me a lot. However, legal services and money are good. But as Michael was attesting, there's a lot of tangled title situations that it doesn't touch, right? Heirs can't be found. The client doesn't live in the home. So, they find out there's 32 heirs. They're like, right? It's just an empty house. It's waiting for the area to be gentrified enough for a developer to come along, right? They don't live in the home, so they don't qualify for tangled title. They're just not poor enough, right? I have a guy today, he's just not poor enough. There's a Medicaid claim. I mean, that's a bigger issue than that, that's a state issue, but these cases that have Medicaid claims and they don't qualify for the hardship waiver, those are situations where they've got to walk away, and that house, again, will sit until a developer finds it interesting enough to do something with it. While we need to, and we have to stop the bleeding, and I think today's effort is there. We have to educate people better. We have to focus on prevention. It's not as if death is uncommon or it's not going to touch everyone. If we're doing our jobs, because everyone has a house, passing down to the next line. I appreciate when leaders can cite their own experiences to say, I don't know what to do. And if I didn't know what to do, then my constituents don't know what to do. So I thank Ms. Gilmore for sharing that story. That would be my story. I'm a lawyer, but before I did this work, did I know how to do anything? No. When my grandfather died, I had to figure it out, just like you did. We have to consider the ways in which we can demystify the whole thing. I'm interested in working as a lawyer, but I'm not interested in us needing to exist as a legal services forever. We should be trying to shut ourselves down, right? Most people don't have complicated estates. They have a family home, they have a checking account, a savings account, maybe life insurance. They don't need complicated wills. The probate process is complicated for attorneys, much less for non-attorneys. I think getting a working group together, how can we make this more accessible? How can we make this less mystical? How can we, a fill-in-the-blank will would do it for a lot of people. They're not great, but they would do it for a lot of people with the type of estate that they have. Everybody can't afford an attorney, so we need to make it possible for people who don't have that access. It can't be a lottery system of the people who happen to get in the door at CLS or VIP or us. Everybody needs to be able to estate plan, and everyone needs to be able to probate. We have a group of practitioners, myself being one, focused on just putting together presentations to communities we serve. We are, our whole model is being set up in communities. And I think who was saying this earlier, I believe from VIP, that finding those trusted entities within communities and connecting there, right? They don't know me, but they know Canaan Baptist. They don't know me, but they know Philadelphia Access Center, right? And they trust that place and the people there, and they know those people. So if we can connect with those folks who are already leaders, and get information to the communities they serve, that they exist in. Funeral directors, right? They interact with our clients, getting information to them on why estate planning is important, and just the basic roadmap of probating, what to do, the steps to take when somebody dies, right? People don't know this, even just a myth busting, right? Here are all the things that, did you know your stepchildren will get nothing unless you make a will? There's huge barriers with people wanting to talk about death. It's not something people like to do. So even just making that normal, everybody's going to die, right? Normalizing that we need to do estate planning. Everybody we do probate for comes back and does a will with us. We bother them to death until they do it because they know what it is to deal with a tangled title. Hey, now you own a house. Take care of your business so that you're not putting this on the next generation. So I'd like to see us really focus on prevention and how we can demystify the whole thing. We can do that with a lot of legal areas, but this is one where we're seeing the result, we're seeing the crisis. So I'd love to be part of that. And I really thank you guys for letting us be part of the discussion here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your testimony and for your service. And Joanne Wardell, can you please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony?
Thank you so much, Councilperson Gauthier, and thank you, Councilperson Gilmore Richardson, for the invitation to testify here today. My name is Joanne Waddell, and I am the co-supervising attorney of the Consumer Housing Unit at Philadelphia Legal Assistance. PLA provides free legal assistance to thousands of low-income Philadelphians every year, and within PLA, the Consumer Housing Unit assists homeowners who are facing the loss of their homes due to mortgage foreclosure, tax foreclosure, tangled title issues, and predatory lending or deed theft scams. PLA also operates the Save Your Home Philly hotline in partnership with the City of Philadelphia and the Philadelphia court system. And the hotline serves as the central point of contact for homeowners in Philadelphia who are facing mortgage foreclosure, tax foreclosure, and tangled title issues. And the hotline assists thousands of homeowners every year. And in fact, much of PLA's current work on tangled title issues really evolved out of our work operating the hotline and working in close partnership with the Mortgage Foreclosure Diversion Program. Within the diversion program, PLA is the primary point of contact for those cases that have come to be known sort of colloquially as the block cases, those foreclosure cases in which some title issue is effectively blocking resolution of the foreclosure case, and it has to be resolved in order for the parties to move forward with a loan modification or other workout. And as our work in this area has expanded, we have prioritized those cases where the tangled title presents some urgent risk to the home, right? So like Mike was saying, also CLS, we are focused on folks who are about to lose their home, pending foreclosure, mortgage foreclosure, tax foreclosure. And we've also started prioritizing those cases where a homeowner needs title in order to access financial assistance for repairs or other city services. And finally, for the next 2 years, we will also be hosting an Independence Fellow who will focus on representing homeowners in the Norris Square neighborhood who have a claim via adverse possession to side lots that they have cared for as gardens or yards for decades and which are now facing intense gentrification pressure. So as Mike said, and as others have said, tangled title cases, they range from fairly straightforward to just incredibly complex. A recent case on the sort of extreme end, a recent case that we litigated successfully at trial earlier this spring required over 250 hours of attorney time over 2 years. And that's on the very extreme end. When heirs are available and can be found and are cooperative, cases can be resolved usually fairly simply within a few months. Since 2019, PLA has assisted over 400 low-income homeowners with tangled title issues, providing legal advice, referrals, brief service, and in some cases, full representation by an attorney. Since 2019, we've helped at least 79 Philadelphians obtain clear title to their home, and we've provided legal advice on how to probate an estate or other brief service to more than 300 others. Obviously, that's a drop in the bucket against a backdrop of more than 10,000 tangled titles in the city of Philadelphia. And so we are so grateful for the city's and for council's commitment and investment in additional funding to address these tangled titles, and we look forward to expanding our work on behalf of low-income homeowners in Philadelphia. So if others have said a tangled title does more than just tie up equity and wealth. Tangled titles are an affordable housing issue. It can make it impossible to access critical services such as the city's basic systems repair program. I can't tell you how many clients I've talked to where there's a hole in their roof, right? Or there's just urgent repairs that they need and they can't get those repairs because we can't untangle the title quickly enough. A tangled title can even cause a home to be lost entirely. When a homeowner dies and if there's a mortgage on the home, the mortgage company may be perfectly happy to accept money as long as the account is current. But if someone falls behind, if the heirs fall behind, or if something else goes wrong, the title issues typically need to be resolved and resolved quickly in order to save the home from foreclosure. We frequently talk to folks who are so frustrated because the mortgage company won't speak to them because they're not the account holder, right? They're not the person who took out the mortgage. And as the Pew report makes clear, tangled titles in Philadelphia, they're not affecting everyone equally. The vast majority are concentrated in census tracts where the majority of residents are Black or brown, and that data is consistent with the cases we see at PLA. Approximately 80% of PLA's clients with tangled titles identify as Black, another 12% as white, and 5% as Hispanic or Latinx. In addition, approximately half of our clients with tangled titles there are also children in the home. So these are intergenerational households that are working to maintain their longtime family home, and which is often the only home they can afford. So as others have already testified so powerfully, the challenge is obviously huge, right, with 10,000 tangled titles, but we look forward. We're so grateful to be working with our partners already. And we're grateful for everyone's commitment to this work. So as others have said, there are a couple issues, right? You have to address both preventing more tangled titles from happening in the future while also dealing with the 10,000 and plus tangled titles that we already have. So education about estate planning, as others have said, is critical to avoid more tangled titles in the future. In my personal experience, there's a couple of sort of key, I would call them misconceptions that are fairly widespread in the city about inheritance and estates that contribute to the scale of the problem in Philadelphia. So first, many of the folks that I've spoken with, many people believe that if a deceased family member wanted a particular person to have the house, then that house is theirs. And it can come to as a surprise to folks that the law says something different if the person didn't have a will. Second, many people believe or assume that if they are the ones who lived in a family home and took care of it for years after their family member died, that it belongs to them. And that, I absolutely understand why people may think that, and it seems fair, right, if you're the one who's been taking care of the home. But we frequently talk to folks who are frustrated and can't understand why they need to jump through so many hoops, getting death certificates, finding lost heirs, filing petitions with the Register of Wills or Orphans Court, when they've been living in the house, they've been paying the taxes, they've been paying for the upkeep. So I think education about estate planning and the importance of having a will is really critical. Second, right, with over 10,000 existing tangled titles in the city of Philadelphia, it will take a dedicated, concerted effort by all of the legal services providers in Philadelphia, along with our pro bono partners and the city, to help homeowners obtain clear title to their house. So as others have mentioned, resolving tangled titles can be a very slow process, but the result is worth it. When homeowners have clear title, they can access critical services and they can tap into the equity in their homes to make investments. So I just want to provide one example, and then I'll wrap up, of what an investment in this work can accomplish. I recently represented a young man who was referred to us by the Community Asthma Prevention Program at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. So Mr. Sharp, my client, who was kind enough to allow me to share his story with you today, has a young child with asthma. He and his family live in West Philadelphia in a home that had been owned by his mother, who passed away several years ago. So this home urgently needed repairs to address environmental triggers that were exacerbating his son's asthma. And CAP it's an amazing program. They were prepared to do the work, to do the repairs, but he had to have title in his name before they could do the repair work. There's also an outstanding mortgage on the property, which had become delinquent after his mother passed away, and which couldn't be resolved until he had obtained clear title. And complicating matters a little bit, which goes to the issue of estate education about estate planning. His mother had left a will and directed that the home be left to her son, but because it hadn't been completed correctly, it was deemed invalid and couldn't be probated. So my client had to negotiate with his sibling who did not live in the home, and you can understand why he might have been hesitant to essentially give away what he thought was his inheritance. But because the mortgage on the property consumed pretty much all of the equity, we were able to explain to his brother that, look, if you force a sale of this house, no one's getting anything, right? And so ultimately we were able to explain and convince him to assign his interest in the house to his brother. And the Tangled Title Fund, which is also, we rely on all the time and is such a wonderful resource, covered the cost of probating the estate, as well as the inheritance taxes. And now my client is the sole owner of his home, and he's moving forward with getting those repairs that he needs to address his son's asthma. So as tangled title cases go, this is a pretty simple one, but it still needed an attorney to kind of get it over the hump, right? And this is just one family, but there are thousands of others like them in Philadelphia. So again, I thank you for the invitation to testify today, and just want to express again how grateful we are for the city council's commitment, for the city's commitment to the issue of affordable housing, for the Register of Wills and our partners and the Recorder of Deeds. And we look forward to working together with everyone to address this critical issue.
Thank you so much for your testimony and your very important work. And I see that there are questions for the panel from Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I want to thank all of you so much for your work and for all you do to work with our constituents across the city. I wanted to start with each legal aid service organization, and I know Melissa addressed this in her testimony partially relative to the allocation of revenue to the legal aid organization. So for each of you, if you could just respond to the assistance you receive directly from the city for this work. So for each legal aid organization represented, if you could detail the city funding that you receive for this work. And we'll start with VIP, Community Legal Services, Philadelphia Legal Assistance, then Senior Law Center, then Christian Legal Clinics of Philadelphia.
Thank you. Kelly, you can go ahead. Oh, got it. Perfect. Thank you for bearing with us as we coordinate. So Philadelphia VIP gets by far the largest city contract regarding tangled titles. And we are, by the way, so excited because Councilmember Dom kind of touched on this, but we're so excited for all of legal services to get in the game and start getting more funding to do this directly. But we get about a 560, sorry, I'm just pulling it up right now. So we get CDBG funding in the amount of $100,000. We get, and that goes directly to program services, so it supports staffing and volunteer costs. And $75,000 in city general funding, which goes directly to the Tangled Title Fund, and $290,000 for in HTF new funding, okay, which goes toward staffing costs, overhead, etc. And then another $100,000 in HTF monies that all goes toward the Tangled Title Fund. So it's altogether we have about 200-ish thousand. Sorry, I'm really bad at mental math. Dedicated to the Tangled Title Fund. So when you see the entirety of our city contract, that is comprised of both staffing costs and also of Tangled Title Fund costs.
Okay. Okay, thank you very, very much. CLS, and then quickly we'll go to PLA and the Senior Law Center and Christian Legal.
Yep, very quickly, since July 1st, 2019, CLS has received $125,000 per year in Housing Trust Fund money for Tangled Title. In addition, CLS has a long-standing contract with DHCD for $440,000 to do mortgage and tax foreclosure work, or represent clients with mortgage and tax foreclosure work. So if, as part of the representation in the mortgage or tax foreclosure work, there happens to be a Tangled Title, that work will also be funded under the $440,000. I would estimate maybe, 10% of those clients represented under that general mortgage and tax foreclosure contract also have Tangled Titles.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. PLA?
PLA gets, again, since July of 2019, has received, I believe, $85,000 a year for Tangled Title. And we also have a separate contract with the city to run the hotline, and the hotline paralegals on that who are working under that contract obviously are flagging those cases for us. And I believe the hotline contract might, I'd have to get back to you on that. It may be about 500. I'm not sure, but the Tangled Title work explicitly is $85,000 a year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Senior Law Center?
Yeah, so although we receive money from DHCD, that's strictly for the mortgage foreclosure diversion program, and we're doing triage work, and we work in conjunction with the housing counselors. So our Tangled Title work that we're doing, and we've had over 670 calls in the last 5 years, is not funded by any city money at all.
Okay, but you do oversee mortgage foreclosure prevention work for the city. Okay,
yes,
and
we
how much is that?
If it's okay with you, Councilwoman, I can get that to you off the record. I just want to make sure that I give you the correct amount.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. And then for Christian Legal Clinics?
Yeah, we actually don't receive any government funding, federal, state, or local, for this work. We just simply had clients come to clinics, and this is what they needed. We get all of our funding from individual donors, churches, and family foundations right now.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you, Madam Chair. I'll reserve the remainder of my questions, and I'll submit them for the record, okay, and then for the working group. Thank you very much.
Ms. Alford, can you call up the next panel to testify?
Marjorie Chan, Andrea Custis, and Queen Judith Robinson.
Okay.
Can you please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony?
Okay, my name is Marjorie Chance, and good morning, Chairwoman Gauthier, Vice Chair Jones, and members of the Committee on Housing, Neighborhood Development, and the Homeless. My name is Marge Chance, and I'm an AARP volunteer. I'm here to testify in support of Resolution 210695. Philadelphia has long recognized the importance of thriving as an age-friendly, livable city for all. As noted in AARP's 2020 Livable Communities Action Plan, Philadelphia, an age-friendly, livable city for all, the commitment to make their great city an even better place for nearly 280,000 residents who are over 60 years old. And with this number represents 19% of the total population, and is both admirable and achievable. I sincerely thank the committee and its members in particular for the effort to continually work together with AARP to make Philadelphia a good place for growing up and growing older. I also thank the sponsor, Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson, for the introduction of Resolution 210695, as Philadelphia has long crippled with this issue of tangled titles for homes. According to an August 2021 Pew Charitable Trust study that examined tangled cities in Philadelphia, tangled titles can and usually have serious ramifications for residents and neighborhoods, sometimes causing people to lose their primary residence or unable to make significant repairs. As such, these titles issues deprive individuals and families of the benefits of owning a home. The title issue impact on community stability. Homes with tangled titles are more likely to fall into despair and become abandoned, causing blight and displacement and reducing the stock of affordable housing. Philadelphia has at least 10,000 tangled titles, affecting 2% of the city's 500,000 plus residential properties. The incidence of tangled title is highest in parts of North Philadelphia, Upper North, West, and Southwest Philadelphia areas that account for only about a third of all residential properties, but more than half of the city's legal tangled titles. Although no demographic data on affected households is available to the neighborhoods, most affected needs to be those with relatively low housing values, low income, and high property rates. Resolving a tangled title issue, which usually requires an attorney, can be time consuming, tedious, and expensive. Without subsidized legal counsel, fee waivers, or other public assistance, the cost of remedying the tangled titles can be significant, about $9,000 or more for a home value at the median of $88,800. AARP's 2020 Livable Communities Action Plan further emphasizes the need to provide legal services to resolve tangled issues that threaten the ownership rights of individuals who inherit a property from a family member who left no will. Finding solutions to this complex issue will not be done in one hearing or by one committee. It will take the combined efforts of all Philadelphians to bring about meaningful changes to this issue. AARP is ready and willing to work with council and other stakeholders to resolve the detrimental effect of tangled titles and make sure that owners can exercise their property rights and not lose their generational equality acquired over time. Thank you for your time and for your commitment to Philadelphia aging population. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chance, for your testimony and for your work. Is Andrea Custis there and connected?
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Gautier, Vice Chair Jones, and members of the Committee on Housing, Neighborhood Development, and Homeless. My name is Andrea Custis, and I am the President and CEO of the Urban League of Philadelphia, and I am testifying today pursuant to Resolution 210-695, introduced by Council Member Gilmore Richardson. As we strive to create a more equitable society, we Philadelphians must set an example to other cities nationwide that non-discriminatory practices are not only possible, but incredibly necessary. As I've stated before, many things about how we move through the world have changed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. What has not changed is the need for housing to keep Philadelphians safe and healthy. The issue of tangled titles is not foreign to many Philadelphians. According to the August 2021 Pew Charitable Trust Report on the issues of tangled titles, it was reported that more than 10,400 properties in Philadelphia have unclear ownership. That same report also found that the tangled title epidemic in Philadelphia has significant barriers to community stability because homes with tangled titles are prone to falling into disrepair and even becoming abandoned, causing plight and displacement and reducing the inventory of affordable housing. What's more troubling is that this tangled title epidemic was designed to keep poor families poor, specifically having a disproportionate burden on our Black communities. I have had an opportunity with our director, Abraham Pardo, who is Latino, I'm African American, and the individuals that we have served in doing workshops is over 250. About 85% look like me, and the other 15% look like my brown director. That has a disparate impact on people of color. An individual's home can be his or her most valuable asset. Many of us and our families begin to build wealth through home ownership. And real estate is one of the main vehicles for preserving intergenerational wealth. It is a fact that homes with title issues are at risk for mortgage disclosure, real estate tax delinquency, and property theft. This means that families are at risk of losing wealth they have built for generations. I've had an opportunity, I think the Register of the Will, Gordon just came back on. I've had an opportunity to have several meetings with her, with our folks, as well as doing these separate tangled title workshops. And they all have been extremely helpful. And I don't recall who it was that, I think it was Michael, who talked about preventive measures. And so last year we saw 2,750 people in our housing department, and I had committed to the registrar that we would absolutely pull the coattails, educate and coach future homeowners to have their life in order so that we can prevent this. And we absolutely have done that with the 2,750 people who attended. There is no one solution to the issue of tangled titles. However, implementing policies and programs that remove unnecessary barriers to housing is just one of many steps we must take to reverse the historical effects of institutional racism, empower the people of Philadelphia, and strengthen our city as a whole. When our people are empowered, our city is empowered. Government and other organizations must take steps and invest in programs to help low-income households prevent and resolve tangled titles. This includes, but is not limited to, greater investments in 1, educational programs that ensure homeowners know what a tangled title is, how probate works, and why a will is important. And we cover that, as I said, with all of our clients. 2, fee deferrals and waivers to make clearing a tangle less costly. It is costly, and we have to be able to take that cost away from our residents. 3, free legal assistance for those without the means to pay. The Urban League of Philadelphia is ready and willing to continue our work with council and with other stakeholders to resolve the detrimental effects of tangled titles. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much, Ms. Custis, for your testimony and for all of your great work. And Queen Judith Robinson, are you there and connected?
Council supports bringing her into the meeting now.
Okay, wonderful. Is she unavailable?
She will be with us in a couple seconds.
Okay, wonderful.
Good day. You have reached Judith Robinson, your real estate professional. Please leave a name, telephone number.
Okay, it looks like we missed her. Thank you so much. So are there any questions or comments from members of the committee for this panel? Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank the last panel for their testimony to AARP and to Andrea Custis at the Urban League of Philadelphia. And I wanted to ask Andrea specifically and both of them what more we could do from a city government perspective to better communicate and collaborate with their offices to ensure that we are doing all we can to inform our constituents about this tangled title and deed issue in the city.
Catherine, that's a wonderful wonderful question. What I would like all of City Council to do is refer any of your constituents in your area to us. We will absolutely help them, assist them. We'll do one-on-one. We're also doing workshops. And I will tell you, we are not going to let anybody, someone else said that, we're not going to turn away anybody and not let anybody not be helped. We've done that with renter eviction. The city has been so pleased that they gave us extra money to help those renters that need help. I think all of you know our work ethic. Abraham has worked with the register. We are doing everything we can. I guarantee you and commit to you today, send anybody our way and we will definitely take care of them. And then the other thing is that we really need to really do some more preventative measures and make sure that all housing counselors are going over this information so that we won't have this in the future, right? Better to educate up front than to wait until there is a problem. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. So there being no further questions from members of the committee and no other witnesses to testify, I will ask, if there is anyone else present in this hearing whose name we have failed to call and that wishes to offer testimony on the resolution being considered today?
And Madam Chair, I just wanted to say for the record, so we have this on the record for Queen Judith Robinson, that we did attempt to reach out to her. We had the tech team contact her multiple times so that we could try to have her testimony for this hearing. So Queen Judith Robinson, if you're listening, if you could please submit us a testimony.
Oh, I'm here now.
Excellent.
There she is. Ms. Robinson, can you please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony?
Queen Judith Robinson, here to testify on this bill 210. 695. I've waited a long time to testify today, and I'm glad I did because I heard a lot. But I want to focus in on two of the testimony. Mr. Frank Breslin from the Revenue Department, and I would agree whoever said that Vicki Riley is one of the best to represent. But he said, you do not have to be an attorney to come down to his office. And the tax delinquency is one of the major areas as to how people lose these properties that are all tangled up. I think we need to reiterate that. We need to amplify that. We need to make sure people know that they could come out of the shadows. They could protect their inheritance. That's very important. And then the other testimony is the lady from VIP. And I'm a little frustrated because It takes 2 lines in a pandemic to get to speak in city council. Y'all got to do better than this, really. And I'm avid at testifying. But this here is a hot doggone mess. But I'm not going to digress. The VIP, the lady from VIP, who said this is a black people's problem. Black people. And I don't see black people in the room. I'm the last of the panel, but I should be first, okay? Let me tell you why. I'm a real estate broker with many years of experience. You all don't have the right people on the panel. You don't have the right people in the room. I could document how many tangled up titles that I've have untangled over the years. Estate planning. Yeah, it's very important. But when you don't have it, in order to close a deal, we untangle titles, and guess what? We don't charge no $9,500. We have whatever our commission is, we close the deal. And we clean up every bit of mess there is. So I think you all need to stop with the nonsense and get people in the room that won't be charging all them billable hours, as Alan Dime, my fellow real estate broker Alan Dime said. It's a hell of a lot of money for them little bit of cases that's been resolved. Some of them over 40 years, and I've watched them. They do eminent domain. Every problem we have had in real estate, they have done nothing to help black people. Nothing. Okay? I hate to be so emotional about it, but you gotta be. You gotta be. When I'm listening to this mess, all that money, and I'm glad you broke it down, who's getting what? Who's getting what of taxpayer dollars? And I can guarantee you, Brother Dom, if somebody get a little bit of child care money and they starving or all kinds of problems, they not going to go and untangle a title. It ain't going to happen like that. So let me, because this is the end of the road, so you put me last, but I should be first, as I say. 41% in Strawberry Mansion, where I was born and raised. You know, black folks, we don't talk to any and everybody. Send me downtown and talk to somebody. I don't trust, because you've done nothing to help me. The invisible hand of government has done everything against us, from the NTI, with black people in charge. Okay, you got more NTI money, you better use it to untangle some titles. Eminent domain using PHA. I get y'all on the second reading and final passage for all this other mess that I wanted to say today, because I'm not going to belabor the point, because I want to give you some solutions. Okay? Y'all keep running around ranting and raving about all the benefits. Violence. It'll reduce violence. Bull crap. It'll reduce this, that, and the third. You know what? If that's true, then y'all need to run to me. Run to me and have me help y'all right away. Because if y'all really, truly believe that we could solve all these societal problems by untangling titles, I'm here and available to you. I'll show you what I'm working with. And guess what? Put the money in escrow. I'll wait to be paid. Okay? I'll wait to be paid.
I just want to ask, we need to start.
Yeah, I know. So let me get to the solutions, because y'all let everybody talk all night. Yak.
I know we got your.
When I come to me, then you want to shut me up. But I'm going to be your secret weapon, okay? I'm going to get you something done. Okay? So, solutions, because you need them. Because you don't have them. You ain't going to get them with all these attorneys, all them billable hours. I'm uptown where it's happening, in Strawberry Mansion, but you don't want to hear what I'm saying. You ready to rush me off just like you did that young black lawyer. Face wasn't smiling when she came on. See, we watching you. Get your minds right. What is this all about? When you don't listen to black people. Let me get you some solutions, okay? Because that's what you need. All right, so, first of all, you need to open up the process. And let some black people like myself, who can talk to other black people, get them to trust me, which they will, because I'm going to talk to them like a black person would be talked to, not some legally crap that they don't even understand. I'm going to get them to tell me the problem, and then I'm going to solve it for them, okay? That's the first thing. So bring some black real estate professionals. There's not even that many black lawyers who are also real estate savvy. Who do you come to when you want a real estate value? You come to the real estate broker. And everybody knows that. You don't even go to the appraiser, who is the appraiser. You come to the real estate broker and say, give me a statement of value. That's who you come to. So you leaving me out the room, shut me up, but you need me, baby, okay? The other thing is, all of the things that you can do before somebody dies. Before somebody dies. So y'all talking to white folks downtown, this one over here and that one over there, but you're not talking to me. I don't know why not. I got solutions for you. But I'm going to put a pin in it right there because you made me wait 2 hours. My time is just as damn valuable as any of them lawyers that you pay in billable hours, but you're not talking to your sister. I'm a grandmother uptown.
All right.
You know?
Thank you so much for your
No,
spirit.
no, thank you too, okay? Thank you too. Y'all
Bye-bye.
need to get y'all minds right. Talking to everybody but who you should
Thank
talk
you
to.
so
Have a
much
good
for
day.
your
Have a good one.
testimony today.
Madam Chair, can I just respond to that? Because I think for the record, this needs to be on the transcript. For the record, as we prepare for all hearings in Philadelphia City Council, we advertised the hearing, shared the information on social media in advance of the hearing. The hearing was advertised by the Chief Clerk's office, and my team and I received an email from Queen Judith Robinson today. We received the email today at around 10:35 while the hearing was going on. So as soon as we received the information, we did get it over to the tech team to ensure that she could be included in the hearing. And Madam Chair, I had to include that for the record so that individuals know that we are seeking to hear from all of our constituents on this very important matter. Thank you very much.
No problem, and thank you for that clarification. There being no further questions from members of the committee and no other witnesses to testify, this concludes the business before the Committee on Housing, Neighborhood Development, and the Homeless today. And I just want to thank everyone who called in to share testimony. I want to thank everyone for their work. I want to especially thank Councilmember Gilmore Richardson and our Register of Wills and all of the legal service organizations working on this cause. And it feels like a big issue, but I feel like we have a lot of the right people at the table, and that makes me confident that we'll be able to help our constituents on this and really make a positive impact. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you all who testified and participated in the hearing.